Hey guys, tonight we ditch the weighted blankets and memory foam, trading bedroom comforts for a night curled beside brick ovens in Silesia. You're not here for mud spas or guided meditations. Nope, you're about to bunk down where kilns burn hotter than your last breakup. And trust me, you probably won't survive this without singed eyebrows. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Let's map how far these brick dust dreams will travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Dusk bleeds across the brickyard. Your boots crunch, gravel each step, releasing the day's trapped heat. Remember Weimar's pastel townhouses? Yeah, their rosy bricks started here, in Silesian clay pits, where generations kneaded mud into gold. The air's thick with trapped sunlight, heavy as wet clay against your skin. You pass pillars of stacked bricks, crimson Legos for giants. Their jagged edges scrape the purple sky. Historians still argue whether these zigzag patterns inspired Dresden's crooked chimneys or just amused bored apprentices. Either way, they're leaning like drunkards after last call. A worker's wheelbarrow lies abandoned, rust blooming through its ribs. You crouch. Beneath dried mud, something glints. An 1892 pfennig, melted and warped. Finders keepers, unless the kiln ghosts want their pocket change back. Wind snakes through the yard, hissing across hot stacks. It carries voices, not workers, their shifts ended at sunset, just the furnaces murmuring. One groans like a creaky bed frame. Another rasps, asthmatic. You count 7 ovens total, a coven of fire-breathing toads. That bitter tang in your throat. Not anxiety. It's the Oder River, now choked with factories on both banks, still feeding these clay pits. Experts think the water's mineral mix gives Silesian bricks their sunset hue. And by experts, I mean Stanislav, the third-generation foreman who winks when he says it. Your sleeping spots clear, a pallet of rejected bricks near kiln number 3. Bonus, it's slightly less lumpy than the others. Unroll your bedroll. Catch a whiff of honey. Turns out the kilns once used crushed violins as aggregate. True story. Their varnish sweetening the smoke. A bat skims overhead, black origami against fading light. You flinch. It's just here for the moths swirling near the chimneys. Relax. Mostly. The real threat's kiln number 2, leaking heat like a grumpy old-timer. Its ancient bricks hold handprints from bricklayers who might be watching from the shadows. Wait, scratch that. No spoilers. For now, let's focus on your aching feet. Kick off your boots. The ground thrums, a deep mechanical purr from underground fans. Imagine explaining that to your chiropractor. Oh, my back. Just vibing with industrial equipment in Poland, you. Stars prickle through the smoke. That's Ursa Major, or maybe just a grease stain on your lenses. Either way, it blinks down at your brickyard sleepover. You're the main character, or the punchline. Only the kilns know for sure. A truck backfires in the distance. Your heart jackhammers. Then silence. Just the ovens sighing. This place could really use a white noise app. ASMR. Ancient kiln soundscapes. Slaps roof. This baby can fit so many existential crises. Your water bottle's warm. Of course, sip it anyway. Taste the faintest iron like licking a robot's tears. Hours from now, you'll wonder if that's why your dreams fill with molten gears and clockwork wolves. Night thickens. The bricks exhale stored warmth, a hug from the earth itself. Or radiation, jury's out. Either way, it's cozy once you stop picturing yourself as a human Pottery Barn reject. Somewhere glass shatters. A feral cat's midnight snack. Or a ghost chucking bottles. Let's assume cats. Always assume cats. They're the cryptids we deserve. Your phone dies. No low power mode warnings here, just the kiln's amber glow on your face. Instagram can wait. This is the part where you either become one with the bricks or finally understand why they call it baked sleep. Breath steadies, eyes heavy. The world shrinks to kiln number 3's heartbeat, a steady womp-womp beneath your cheek. Last thought, that melted coin in your pocket, still warm, a souvenir or an invitation to return. Either way sleeps here. Twilight gnaws the last blue from the sky as workers trudge home, their bootprints filling with shadows behind them. You circle the brick stacks, pyramids of dried earth looming like Toltec ruins. Orange light bleeds between their cracks, the kiln's breath seeping through its clay skin. That low growl isn't just metaphor. 19th century Silesian kilns hit 1200 degrees, hot enough to melt lead soldiers. By the 1880s, these yards fueled a third of Prussia's construction boom. Each batch took 3 days to fire. You count 12 stacks waiting their turn. One near the back crumbles slightly, third tier sagging like a rotten molar. You crouch, press your palm against a warm brick. Historians still argue whether the sulfur smell came from coal seams or the clay itself. Your nose votes for coal. A faint ping echoes inside the stack, cooling clay contracting, brick by brick by brick. The main furnace dominates the yard's heart, a beehive-shaped monster with iron-bound doors. Through its peephole, molten gold. Your eyelashes singe. Medieval brickmakers believed kilns housed fire demons, hence the St. Vitus icons nailed above every arch. This one saint has flaked away, leaving 3 rusty nails and a vague sense of judgment. Smoke twists into the violet sky, a sideways tornado greasy with particulates. You taste 16-day-old rain and something fungal. Local lore says workers tucked millet cakes into brick voids, sacrifices to some kiln god's sweet tooth. Archaeologists found petrified bread lumps in the 1990s. You check a nearby stack's gaps, nothing but spider webs and decades-old coal dust. Footsteps, you freeze, but it's just a rat dragging a cabbage leaf toward the ash pile. The furnace rumbles louder, air whistling through its flue like a tea kettle's primal ancestor. Your shirt sticks to your spine. 17th century laborers, stripped naked during firings, died anyway when kiln doors exploded. You unbutton your collar, compromise as a survival tactic. A brick clatters somewhere. The rat freezes, ears twitching toward coal heap mountain. Wind, settling clay. You pocket a shard of glazed overburn, its edge sharp enough to slice cheap rope. It's lighter than expected. 17 men once lifted an entire kiln door using pulleys and bad decisions. The iron handles still bent, fossilized hubris. Laughter echoes from the road, the night watchman sharing a flask with someone unseen. The kiln's glow catches his silver tooth. He doesn't glance your way. Smart. Trespassers in 1893 got tossed into the cooling pits, allegedly. Court records blame drunken mishaps. You sidle behind the tallest stack, pressing against sun-warmed clay. Embers spit from the chimney, hissing as they die in puddles. You memorize their trajectories, Morse code with no message. 3 bricks to your left bear childish handprints, a apprentice's joke, a quality control stamp. Either way, the fingers are too small, palm arched like a starfish. You press your hand over one, cold clay meets warm skin. The furnace cycles, its groan dropping an octave. Drafts suck ash into phantom whirlwinds. You blink grit from your eyes. 19th century medical journals blamed brick lung on mortar dust. Turned out to be silicosis. Your bandana won't save you. But hey, neither did their leech treatments. Midnight nears. The rat wins its cabbage tug-of-war. You count 7 kiln vents glow brighter, each framed by hand-laid bricks in herringbone patterns. 1 keystone's missing, a dark gap like a skipped heartbeat. Workers called that the devil's share, intentional flaw to ward off perfection-hungry spirits. You toss your glazed shard into the hole. It doesn't clink, doesn't make sense. You lean closer. The furnace roars, belching a fireball that licks the chimney top. Heat slaps your face. Embers rain down. Some sizzle out in dirt, others land on the driest stacks. For 3 breaths, the yard holds its combustion breath, then the danger passes. Your knees unlock. 1762, the Great Breslau Kiln Fire started exactly this way. Burned for 2 days. Melted church bells. You pat your smoldering sleeve, impressed by history's commitment to repetition. Cold creeps in as the kiln dims, its fury spent for now. The watchman's flask glints across the yard, tin catching moonlight as he tilts it back. Bricks tick their slow geology beneath you. Somewhere an owl or a squeaking pulley screams. The owl's cry fades, leaving only the furnace's bassoon-like drone vibrating your molars. You slump against a brick column, its stored heat seeping into your shoulder blades. Across Europe, 19th century kilns used damp sand coatings to regulate cooling. But this one radiates raw, unbridled warmth. Your spine unkinks. Someone should patent this, ancient brick-based chiropractic therapy. Bricks hum beneath you, low and constant. a sound felt more than heard. Workers swore sleeping here cured rheumatism. Medical journals called it occupational delusion. You shift, jeans picking up a patina of soot and powdered clay, 3 vents above pulse, like a rhythmic hearts, their orange glow dimming by increments. Historians still argue whether the vibrations induced trance states or just really good naps. A moth drunk on heat staggers past your nose, wings powdered with ash. It crash lands on a brick marked HK 1891, some foreman's cursive immortalized in glaze. You trace the letters, mid-transit workers, often doodled on soft clay, 19th century Slack messages, like WILHELM sucks, found in Vienna's sewers. This HK got lucky. His tag survived firing. The furnace shifts pitch, its growl softening to a purr. You match your breathing 4 counts in, 7 out. Supposedly, Bohemian kiln crews snored in sync with dormant furnaces. A foreman's memoir describes it like bedding down inside a dragon's ribcage. Your eyelids droop. Above, the Big Dipper tilts, its handle dripping starlight onto the chimney. Something pings, a sharp, ceramic tink from the nearest stack. Thermal contraction, sure, but the rhythm feels intentional. 2 shorts, 1 long, 2 shorts. SOS. Coal mine canaries used to collapse mid-song, your brains conjuring patterns in the noise. Still, you knock back 3 quick raps. The kiln responds with what sounds like a brick-sized chuckle. Heat rises through the ground, not as aggression now, but invitation. You sprawl on your back, arms splayed. Medieval peasants believed hardening bricks absorbed prayers. Find one from 1400s Rocklow. It reads, God, let this batch not explode, amen. Efficient theology. Your own wishes feel smaller, silent gratitude for the ache leaving your knees. Midnight humidity glues your shirt to the small of your back. Workers soaked their uniforms in salt brine, stiff fabric scraping skin raw. You wriggle, fabric peels away with a Velcro-like rasp. The shed cat watches, unimpressed. Try licking coal dust for 6 months, you mutter. It flicks its tail, sachets into shadows. A breeze riffles through stacked bricks, whistling between gaps in D minor. 5 vents glow now, their heat mirages warping the moon. You count their pulse like sheep. 3 stacks over. A shoveling sound starts, ash being turned for tomorrow's mortar, the rhythms hypnotic. 16th century hymns in Prussia used brickyard cadences, labor songs without lyrics, just grunts and scrapes. Your thumb finds a brick's fingerprint groove, left when the clay was still mud. Analysis in 2017 matched similar marks to a family of potters near Görlitz. Generations pressing identical whorls into wet earth. Yours doesn't align, an outsider's touch. The groove feels deeper, yearning for compatibility that won't come. Embers die above, their final sparks outshone by fireflies near the clay pits. Male flashes, precise semaphore. Females answer delayed, judicious. You used to know the codes. Was 3 quick bursts hello or danger? Either way, They're flirting, not warning. The furnace approves its last exhale, ruffling their wings. Dew forms on the cooler bricks, beads sliding into mortar cracks. You stick out your tongue, tastes like licking a battery, minerals, and static. Rainwater filtered through 50 feet of glacial, till this yard's original recipe. Silesian bricklayers drank it straight, claimed it made their mix stronger. Half the crews died before 40. A brick near your head exhales, a porous whistle as air escapes. They say overnight crews heard whispers from the stacks. Projection, probably, but you still lean in. Tell me something true, you murmur. The kiln responds, cracking a brick 6 layers down, a seismic shrug. Sleep comes as a sly infiltrator, no dramatic yawns, just wait. Your hand stays pressed to the brick column, pulse tapping Morse. Steady, steady, steady. The town clock tolls 12, each bronze note dissolving before it reaches the kilns. Here, time isn't sliced into hours, it oozes. Thick as wet mortar, you count glowing vents. Instead of sheep, 7 amber eyes blinking through ash fog. 16th century brickyards used sandglasses to track firings. Egg timers for industrial scale pottery. Yours would have been stolen by now, some journeyman's kid, fascinated by falling grains. A brick stack creaks, thermal contractions sounding like old stairs. Workers swore midnight shifts, warped their perception, claimed 3M lasted longer than dawn. You check your phone. 12:47. The screen's glare feels obscene here, a pocket-sized supernova. Historians still argue whether night crews hallucinated from heat or just needed better overtime pay. Your breath sinks with the shoveling rhythm from Section 3, still ongoing, still metronomic. 3 centuries back, Silesian brickmakers bribed timekeepers to stretch breaks. Cost: 2 eggs or a thimble of brandy. You wonder what today's crew would demand. Bitcoin, vape cartridges. The shovel pauses, its bearer hawks phlegm into a coal pile. Ash swirls into numeral shapes above the kiln. 11:59, 4:30, 8:15. Meaningless here. Prague's old town hall clock had a special brick layer, his secret. Goat's blood in the mortar. You squint at the floating numbers. They resolve into a date. 1848. Revolution year. Coincidence or coded revolt. The vents exhale, scattering digits into smoke. Someone hung a horseshoe over kiln number 4, rusted, upside down. Luck pours out, you murmur. A 1902 worker's journal describes nailing his mistress' garter there, till the foreman's wife recognized the lace. The current charms safer, generic, forgettable, like most wishes baked into these walls. Moonlight glazes the yard, a mercury sheen on every surface. You blink. The sheds, the stacks, the ash piles, everything looks freshly cast in pewter. 19th century night crews used tin mirrors to signal each other Morse code with moonlight. Your water bottle cap catches a beam, sends a weak gleam eastward. No response. Heat peels your socks from your ankles, slow, as century-old wallpaper. Workers soaked their foot wraps in vinegar. The stench kept rats from nibbling toes. You sniff. Still works, your Reeboks could fumigate a tavern. The cat reappears, gags theatrically retreats. Try 18th century threadbare linen, you call after it. A brick detaches from the third stack, shatters on impact. Thermal stress, obviously. But the debris forms a rough arrow pointing northwest toward Rakla, the Guildhall, that pub with the terrible schnapps. You kick a fragment. It skitters into shadows, clattering against something metallic. No investigation. Not your circus, not your clowns. The far kiln unleashes a bass rumble felt in your molars. Workers called these dragon yawns. 1745 safety manuals banned, napping within 50 paces, not that anyone obeyed. Your sleeping bags 12 feet away. Reckless, thrilling, you burrow deeper, challenging the ghost foreman to write you up. Birth's miniature mudslides down brick stacks, miniature Oder Rivers reenacting their birth. You press a palm to the sludge. Goosebumps rise, same as touching a newborn's head. 15th century mothers buried placentas, here strong foundations for sickly infants. You wipe your hand. The earth reclaims the moisture hungry. 4 vents dim, their eyelid-like dampers half-closed. 3 remain watchful. Bohemian guards used similar rhythms. 3 fires lit meant all's well. Or was it 4? Manuscripts disagree. You invent your own code. 2 blinks for bring coffee, 5 for send help. Wind riffles a packet of forgotten documents. Shipping manifests, maybe, or love letters. The pages curl, blackening at the edges, before lifting into the flue. 1 scrap clings to your knee, a smudged sketch of a horse. Or a very ugly dog. The kiln eats it, indifferent archivist. Your pulse slips into the yard's rhythm, shovels, cracking bricks. Distant trains. Nightshift vernacular. Workers in 1921. Krakow timed deliveries by listening to rail vibrations. You try it, count seconds between rumbles. Give up at 43. Modern trains run off schedule, too chaotic for timekeeping. The 7th vent winks out, plunging the kiln face into shadow. Dawn's still hours off. A test. A warning. You fumble for your flashlight freeze. Fireflies swarm the dead vents, bioluminescence filling each rectangular mouth. Nature's shift, workers punching in. Their light feels colder, cleaner, less likely to immolate you when the main furnace reignites. And it will, you'll miss this fragile truce. The calm between firings. Strasbourg's brickyards held mandatory silence during this lull fines for coughing. Your joints pop as you stretch. The sound would have cost you a week's wages. Something warm nudges your elbow, the cat, seeking radiator brick access. You scoot aside. It curls into the spot contempt replaced by pragmatism. Truce. You share a stare. Its pupils hold twin reflections of the guttering vents, 7 reduced to 3. The math feels significant. You don't journal it. Sleep tries again, soft this time, fog rolling off a river. You tally the remaining vents. Then the fireflies. Then the cat's whisker twitches. Numbers dissolve. The town clock stays silent, outrespected by the kiln's ancient, molten heartbeat. Moonlight licks a row of unbaked bricks, their surfaces still damp, still holding the shape of thumbs. You crouch, press a palm to the nearest block. Cool mud seeps between your fingers, birth fluid of cities. 18th century Silesia exported over 20 million bricks annually, each one kneaded by hands, now dust. The cat reappears, sniffs the clay, leaves comma-shaped dents. Its tail flicks dismissively. No vermin here, you mutter, just earth and water and time's patience. Workers used to spit into the mix, claimed their DNA strengthened the final product. You consider contributing, decide against it. A breeze lifts the scent of raw loam, damp cellar meets fresh grave. The bricks seem to shiver. 16th century molds bore carved patterns, crosses, spirals, occasional profanities. You squint. These show only the grid of wire cutters, efficiency over artistry. One rebel block bulges, a tumorous growth on its side. Your thumbnail scrapes the soft surface. It parts like chilled butter, revealing grit from the odor's ancient bed. Historians still argue whether river clay made sturdier bricks or just fed regional pride. The answers here crumbly and temporary in your hand. A drip falls from the roof gutter plink, eroding the nearest brick's edge. Fixable before firing. Workers would have slapped fresh slurry on the wound, business as usual. You let nature gnaw. The moon etches the damaged silver, a flaw turned feature. 3 rows over, shadows pool in a half-formed block's hollow. You peer closer. Something glints, a nail, a coin, pressed there by accident or intention. 19th century laborers buried tokens for luck, buttons, teeth, saint medals. One kiln master found 32 dog tags in a single batch. Breath held, you probe the muck. Cold silt coats your fingertip. The mystery object stays buried. Tomorrow's workers will fire it into secrecy, clay swallowing history whole. You wipe your hand on your jeans, streaking mud like war paint. The wind shifts, carrying the furnace's last exhale. These wet bricks will replace those now cooling, cycle unbroken since Charlemagne's ovens. You trace a crack. Sprechen sei Deutsch. The earth doesn't answer. It never does. A distant splash echoes, the night watchman watering the hardening stacks. His silhouette moves methodically, sprinkling liquid life to prevent cracks. 600 years ago, they used urine ammonia toughening the clay. Progress means municipal water now. Less stench, same result. Your knees protest as you stand. The fresh blocks form a maze, miniature downtown, awaiting disaster. Flash flood, earthquake, frost heave. You're the colossus looming above. A mouse darts through the grid, playing citizen in this doomed metropolis. Moonlight bleeds across the yard. Thin moonlight bleeds across the yard. Thin milk on cold cinders. A silhouette cuts through the haze, shovel-biting ash, with metallic scrapes. You freeze. His jerky movements suggest moths circling a lamp, until the rhythm reveals purpose. Each scoop arcs into burlap, a pendulum keeping time in this soot-choked heart. Kiln's cathedral used Silesian bricks for 7 centuries. Ash from these kilns fertilized Rhineland wheat fields. The man's boots crunch the same gray powder that once fed king's bread. He coughs, a wet sound spits into the mound. Not part of the recipe anymore, you whisper. The wind steals the joke. His shovel uncovers a half-melted bottle glass, warped into a fossilized tear. 19th century workers tossed schnapps flasks here, their heat-twisted remains prized by eccentric collectors. You imagine eBay listings, rare industrial folk art haunted. Reality smells of wet charcoal and nicotine. One sack splits, ash cascades like reversed snowfall. He curses, voice hoarse, as the kiln's throat kneels to salvage his haul. Historians still argue whether Neitzel collectors hummed to ward off spirits or just pass the time. His tuneless grunt settles nothing. Your heel grinds a clinker, it shrieks. He whirls, face candle wax pale under soot. For 3 heartbeats, you're trespassers in each other's stories. Then he nods, the secret handshake of midnight wanderers, resumes shoveling. The ash pit exhales remembrance, last year's firewood, a 1923 cigar stub, the carbon ghost of a crow's nest. You inhale centuries, your sinuses burn with borrowed decay. He drags another sack, hemp fibers groaning toward a cart. Its wheels left scars in the mud during the Weimar Republic. A glint catches your eye, a coin embedded in ash. You nudge it with your toe, 1918 pfennig, eagle barely visible. Workers pressed luck into the gray, hoping wages would outlast inflation. The keeper's shadow falls over it. Yours, he rasps. You step back. Let history keep its bribes. He heaves the final sack, corded arms trembling, and collapses onto the cart's edge. Light bleeds from the eastern kiln's dawn, still hours off. His fatigue smells familiar, the same stale sweat that soaked great-grandfather's union pamphlets. You offer your canteen. He drinks, water cutting tracks through grime, hands it back with a snort. Not thanks, acknowledgement. The cart creaks toward the storage shed, a procession of 1. You count sacks 11. Enough ash to grow 100 loaves, or bury them. His lantern sways, a dying star in the soot-clouded air. The yard holds its breath, watching the oldest dance. Dust to fertilizer, metal clangs, padlock secured. His footsteps fade toward the river, where washerwomen once scrubbed ash from petticoats. You kneel, press a palm to the scavenged earth. It's warm yet, the kiln's echo lingering in spent fuel. Dawn will send junior men to spread this gray gospel over fields. The mouse from the brick maze reappears, trailed by 5 pups. They burrow into the ash heap, vanishing like stitches in a gray quilt. You envy their simplicity, no debates, just survival. A pup sneezes, powder blooming like a miniature explosion. You choke back a laugh, sound strangled by respect for the keeper's domain. Wind riffles the empty pit, exposing a shard of pottery, 1700s slipware, blue flowers devoured by heat. You pocket it, the keeper's silent permission, your only heirloom. Somewhere, a church bell tolls 3 a.m. or 3 centuries past. The ash will outlive both. Your boots leave comet trails as you retreat, gray plumes settling slow as forgiveness. The shed door gapes, sacks stacked like bodies. One shifts, settling into final rest. Tomorrow, rain will turn ash to slurry, begin the cycle anew. You wonder if it dreams of flame. Yellow eyes snap open in the shed's rubble, 2 embers cast by the main kiln's glow. You stop mid-step, boot hovering over a cracked brick. The cat's fur matches the soot-stained timbers. Only its pupils betray movement, slow blinks dissecting your trespass. Firelight ripples across its flank, living chiaroscuro in this ruin. Silesian brickmakers kept cats for centuries. Pennies paid per rat's skull delivered to foremen. This one's ears show old fight scars, notched like guild marks. You rummage for rations, find a cinnamon roll purloined from breakfast. Trade. You murmur, tossing a crumb. The feline sniffs, stares, its contempt sharper than a kiln's wire cutter. Something clatters in the shed, a rusted pulley system dangling above. The cat leaps paw batting at corroded chains. 19th century workers hung glass-eyed wooden decoys, here meant to trick rodents into freezing. Historians still argue whether mice fell for it, or just enjoyed the artisanal aesthetic. Current evidence suggests both species prefer moving targets. You crouch, ash gritting your kneecaps, and spot a nest wedged between bricks. Eggshell fragments litter the ground, speckled ovals stolen from some ambitious chicken. The cat purrs a sound like grinding gears and nudges a cracked lens toward your toe. A doll's eye cobalt glass milky with age rolls to a stop. Moonlight catches the iris, same Prussian blue as the 1873 flood markers on the kiln walls. The cat bristles, hackles raised at your scrutiny. You retreat, hands raised, and it pounces on the bauble, biting the fake pupil with delicate disdain. Local legends claimed midnight cats guarded eye stones that could see through fired clay. The foreman's ledger from 1912 lists 14 worker firings for smuggling marbles. Heat ripples distort the yard, turning furnace stacks into wavering giants. The feline leaps onto a collapsed chimney duct, a black smudge against brickwork. Its tail flicks, mocking your stiff-legged shuffle over hot ground. You remember the mouse family from the ash pit, wonder how many ancestors this hunter has claimed. A distant screech owl suggests an ongoing scorecard. Your water canteen glints, drawing the cat's gaze. You pour a trickle into your palm. It laps once, freezes, then resumes licking with performative reluctance. A droplet clings to its whisker, trembling like a liquid comet. Hydration's important. You mutter, wiping soot on your jeans. The canteen's cap clanks, signaling truce's end. and the creature vanishes into a crack between kilns. A brick shifts inside the shed, thump echoing through hollows. You edge closer, peering through a hole where mortar crumbled during Weimar steel shortages. Rusted tools lie entombed, pincers frozen mid-grip, their jaws welded shut by time. The cat watches from a beam, daring you to touch. Your fingertip grazes a wire basket, flaking rust like dried blood. Above, a faded poster warns unberechtigter Zutritt verboten, unauthorized entry forbidden. The cat yawns, tongue curling, unimpressed by Prussian bureaucracy. Some brickmakers whispered that felines were exempt from all human laws. Their 3 a.m. yowls certainly supported the theory. Something warm brushes your calf. The cat rubs figure eights around your legs. Ash patterns swirl on its fur arcs, and spirals mirroring kiln vents. You hesitate, then scratch behind its ragged ear. A purr erupts, volcanic, undeniable, vibrating through your boot soles. For 9 seconds, your comrades. Then it darts off, tail hooked like a question mark. Dawn stains the horizon, the cat's eyes dimming from gold to murky jade. You retreat each backward step, crunching clinker underfoot. It ascends the shed roof, silhouette stretching, a living weather vane pointing east. 3 quick licks to its paw, the only goodbye offered. Your pocket weighs heavy, with the doll's eyeglass warmed by body heat. The kiln's last night shift rumbles, bricks contracting in the cooling dark. Somewhere beyond the sheds, a bell clangs. The cat doesn't turn, its vigil unbroken guardian of tools and trespassers alike. You walk away, ash clinging to your soles, half expecting blue sparks in your footprints. Ash clings to your lashes as you approach the main kiln, its arched mouth exhaling heat in rhythmic pulses. Each breath pulls in burnt loam, scorched minerals, searing your sinuses. A scent older than Prussia's first brickyard ledgers. Silesian kiln masters once boasted they could fire bricks, using nothing but oak and curses. A claim tested during the 1884 coal strike. Drafts twist cinders into spirals above the furnace, gray whorls mimicking the Andromeda constellation. You squint, tracing phantom hunters and chariots, until a cough wrecks your stargazing. 19th century workers called these ash devils schornsteingeister, chimney ghosts, said to predict kiln temperatures. One 1903 diary insists a perfect spiral meant firing 10 bricks for the emperor's outhouse. Historians still argue whether that was a prank or actual imperial policy. The bellows wheeze a sound like a hibernating bear snoring. You press your palm to the iron housing, feel each labored pump through your molars. A century ago, someone etched GRTRUD into the metal letters blurred by decades of soot. Your thumb finds the groove, a name worn smooth as river stones. Heat warps your vision, turning the compound wall into liquid amber. You shed your jacket, instantly regret it, as airborne grit sticks to sweat. 3 workers once bet their wages on who could stand closest to the kiln's mouth. The 1898 incident was memorialized in a folk song, 3 men, 3 bricks, 1 blistering night. Spoiler, nobody won, except the tavern keeper selling ale. Ash gathers in your collar, gritty snow melting against skin. You tilt your head back, let flakes land on your tongue. They dissolve bitter carbon and vanished forests. A foreman's manual from 1911 warned against air gluttony, claiming overbreathing kiln fumes caused hysterical masonry fantasies. You're pretty sure that's just dehydration, but your mouth tastes like a blacksmith's floor anyway. The bellows stutter, silence crashes in, then the machine roars back twice as loud. Vents shudder, spitting sparks that die midair, fireflies with commitment issues. You count their short lives, 37 brief glows, before the rhythm steadies. Clay dust coats your teeth. You swear it's whispering harder, faster, burn. Moonlight carves the kiln's shadow across the yard, a black arrow pointing nowhere. Your canteen's last sip tastes of tin and bad decisions. You lean against a brick column, its surface still holding noon's warmth, and watch your breath mingle with chimney smoke. 2 streams intertwine, mortal exhalations marrying industrial sighs before vanishing into the smudged horizon. Somewhere a nightjar trills, its call syncopated with the bellows. You peel a curl of birch bark from your sleeve, leftover kindling from the morning's fire. For 7 seconds, you consider tossing it into the kiln, a minuscule offering. Wisdom prevails, or maybe laziness, as the bark flutters to the ground. A crack echoes inside the furnace, clay surrendering to transformation. You imagine the bricks inside, reddening, shedding their mud soles. Dawn's first light bleeds through the eastern flue, dimming the fire's glow without mercy. Your knees protest as you rise, each pop a reminder that bodies aren't forged like ceramics. The bellows gasp, one final push before falling still. Ash settles, a fuzzy quicksand swallowing your boots. You walk backward, keeping eyes on the kiln until its outline blurs into the graying air. Somewhere beneath your feet, 300 years of collapsed furnaces sleep their dreams full of heat and silence. Brick dust still powders your boots when footsteps crunch gravel, a silhouetted figure hauling buckets toward the cooling stacks. You press against a sagging shed, watch moonlight gleam off bronze sprinkler heads. 4th century Roman aqueducts first channeled water to brickyards, engineering stolen by every empire since. But tonight's ritual feels older, the worker's hunched posture suggesting prayer more than labor. He hoists a copper can, water arcs over new bricks in silver threads. Steam erupts, a hissing choir that prickles your ears, each droplet's death scream. 1792 parish records mention a clay sprinkler's dirge, claims workers sang charms to quiet the steam voices. One verse survives. Hush, serpent breath, bite not the hands that feed you fire. Your nose wrinkles, scorched wet earth smells like a struck match dunked in tea. The mist coats your lips, ferric tang of oxidized well water, charcoal aftertaste lingering. Historians still argue whether midnight quenching strengthened bricks or just pleased local river sprites. Either way, the worker moves with reverence, sprinkling each row like communion wafers. A droplet hits your wrist, burns cold. You jump, slap the shed wall. The worker freezes, head cocked listening. Years back, a matron's memoir described kiln yard imps who punished eavesdroppers with steam blisters. You hold your breath, pray your racing heart doesn't echo. His shrug rattles the buckets. Work resumes. Water meets brick. Steam snakes twist into the rafters. You count the sizzles, 34 before the next pause. Heat shimmers, warp his face, features melting like wax, until he's less man than shadow puppet. The final bucket tips. A splash floods the gutter. Steam plumes billow, forming a veiled figure dancing above the kiln. 19th century occult journals swore steam ghosts revealed future brick fissures. You blink, the shape dissolves, replaced by chimney smoke and dumb luck. Wind carries leftover mist, it beads on your sleeves, false dew. You lick a droplet, taste iron deposits, and last Tuesday's rain. Workers called this kiln broth, believed it cured warts if applied during a crescent moon. Your skeptic's tongue finds only minerals and urban legends. The man crouches, checks brick, seams with calloused thumbs, his lantern gutters, revealing a faded tattoo, crossed trowels over a Warsaw postcode. You wonder if it's guild sigil or prison ink, then decide some mysteries stay buried. He straightens, spits on the bricks, a final offering. Steam licks his boot soles as he retreats. Distant church bells argue with a night train's horn, holy against industrial. Your knees creak, reminding you how long you've stood statue still. Damp patches darken the yard, steam's aftermath. You approach, tread carefully, ash mud sucking at your soles. 7 bricks glisten their surfaces, pocked by quenching. Pressing your palm flat, you feel vibrations, microscopic cracks, singing counterpoint. Dawn pinks the eastern kiln vents. Somewhere, a sparrow tests the air, unimpressed by nighttime rituals. You pocket a broken brick chip, edges still sharp, and follow the worker's retreating path. His footprints gleam wet for 3 paces, then vanish, as if the earth drank them whole. The chimney's breath turns the Big Dipper into a smudged fingerprint, stars blurred by smoke's gauzy curtain. You squint, reshape constellations into kiln yard logic. That clusters a horse collar. Those 3 form a brickmason's chisel. 4th century Babylonian brick stamps bore star maps, workers aligning kilns with celestial north for true-fired bricks. Your phone's stargazing app lies useless in your pocket, outmatched by 2 centuries of coal fumes. Ash drifts upward, mocking snowflakes as they catch moonlight. One lands on your tongue, dissolves into bitterness like licking a battery. 1799 tax records show Silesian brickmakers claiming stardust in their chimneys lowered ale costs. You cough, doubt the logic, but savor the idea of getting tipsy on comet leftovers. A bat dives, silhouette slicing through the smoke veil. Its wings snap like wet clay slapped on a table. Historians still argue whether medieval kiln tenders used bats for pest control or just enjoyed watching them chase sparks. You track its jagged path until it merges with the dark, leaving only the afterimage of movement. The main kiln belches. A smoke ring expands toward Orion's belt. For a heartbeat, the hunter's sword becomes a trowel, his shield a drying brick. A 1920s paranormal journal swore brickyard smoke showed the true heavens, gods shaped by labor, not myth. You blink, the vision breaks, but your neck stays craned skyward. Your heel grinds something into cinders. Look down to find a child's marble glass, half melted into a teardrop shape. 19th century workers. Kids played clinker marbles, using furnace slag that scorched their pockets. You roll it between thumb and forefinger, wonder if it's older than your grandfather's wristwatch. Wind shifts, smoke unravels, revealing the Silesian night's lone truth. Industry conquers even stars. The plow's handle snaps, its celestial bucket drains into the kiln's flaming mouth. You count 11 visible stars, exactly the number of bricks needed to build a henhouse. According to that drunk mason in Rocklaw, something pings off a cooling stack, a stray ember, a pebble. The sound loops, tinny and metallic, like a dropped wrench singing on concrete. 1888 worker ledgers mention night bells hung to warn of temperature drops, but you're not sticking around to verify. The smoke thickens. The moon shrinks to a hazy aspirin dissolving in God's glass. Your nostrils flare, each breath feels lined with soot, a free nasal rinse for the dedicated insomniac. Local legends claim Nightshift inhalations let you dream in brick red, your subconscious mortar sealed against intruders. You'll test that theory once the adrenaline fades. A shooting star streaks east, tail fluorescing green, while the kiln's flame gutters orange below. Fire above fire beneath your body, the brief bridge between. 19th century polemics called brickmakers earths, alchemists, crude cousin to star-obsessed astronomers. As ash dusts your hair gray, you grasp the kinship. Both trade in ancient dust remade. Your shadow stretches across stacked bricks, stretches, snaps, as the main furnace doors slam shut. The yard dims, stars reassert themselves, pinpricks through a sieve of lingering smoke. 17 rose over a shard of mirrored glass winks from the ash pile, moonlight trapped and offered back. When you finally look down, your palm cradles 5 pebbles, arranged in a vague house shape. Tomorrow's workers will kick them aside, unknowing, as they trample tonight's fragile architecture. The night train whistles, its Doppler cry bending with the wind, as you pocket one stone, souvenir of a heaven remade by fire. Cooling clay sings as night deepens, each brick contracting with metallic pings. You press your ear to a stack. Sound vibrates jawbone to temples, a skeletal xylophone. Roman builders tapped bricks to check hardness, certified by a clear ting, though legionnaires preferred their walls silent. These Silesian survivors chatter louder, crazed cicadas trapped in terracotta. A sharp crack echoes, you flinch, but it's just 3 bricks snapping into final form. Their Morse code spans the yard. Pop, pause, pop, 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 longer pause, pop. Workers once decoded these rhythms, knew which kilns needed airflow tweaks. Historians still argue whether those men understood acoustics or just trusted the clay's whispers. You mimic their technique, knuckle rap a warm brick. It answers with a hollow thunk, the sound of a coffin stuffed with wet newspapers. Not ideal. A 1960s Soviet study tried training bricks as seismic sensors, abandoned when the best listener shattered during a Politburo demo. Your fingernail traces mortar lines, each groove a dried riverbed. The stacks breathe now, expanding, contracting, their thermal size sync with your yawns. 14th century monks wrote of haunted kilns, claimed demons hid in underfired bricks to curse cathedral walls. You rest your cheek against a cool one, its surface pitted like lunar rock. If there's a devil here, it's a petty one, itching to warp your dreams into trivial puzzles. A brick 3 rows east explodes, shrapnel skitters across the yard. Thermal shock, the drama queen of ceramics. You count heartbeats until calm returns 19 as bricks settle into softer ticks. Workers called this phase clay's gossip hour, all grievances aired before dawn's freeze. Your boot nudges a fragment, still warm, faceted like a gemstone forged in a coke oven. 2 pings overlap, creating a third, ghostly tone. You hum a long minor key until the duet becomes a round. Archaeologists found Sumerian bricks inscribed with musical notation, tones for stable verses. Check the damn flue, the melody phrase, a brick's bass thud, cutting your aria short. Appreciate the critique. Your shower concerts get similar reviews. Heat shimmers distort the moon, now a quivering oval, like an egg yolk on a griddle. You lie back, spine aligned with a brick column, shoulder blades registering every uneven edge. A 1903 catalog advertised acoustic bricks for concert halls, guaranteed to hush coughs and hecklers. Tonight's performers lack such refinement. Their cracks hit like offbeat snare drums. Dew forms on the northern stacks. Steam rises where droplets meet residual heat. Each hiss whispers, too fast, too fast. Medieval brickmakers spit on fresh batches, timed drying by saliva's sizzle. You lob a glob at the nearest brick. It screams, a satisfying validation of ancient hubris. The yard's pulse slows, intervals between pings stretching as the kilns relinquish their grip. Your eyelids chart the tempo, half shut with each pop, open briefly for the next. A Cold War spy rumor surfaces. East German agents hid microphones in bricks, eavesdropping on Western construction sites. You snort, imagine Stasi tapes full of mudslides and foreman belching. A final clang rings out, a brick cleaving clean down the middle. The split face reveals its secrets. pebbles from the Oder River's prehistoric bed, now glazed into eternity. You poke the exposed innards, still radiating stored heat, like touching a sun-baked sidewalk at midnight. Air shifts, dawn's first breezes snake through gaps in the stacks. The bricks groan, adjusting to the new drafts, their language shifting from staccato warnings to drawn-out creaks. 19th century phrenologists mapped kilnyard sounds onto skull bumps, declared certain pings indicated moral density. You rub your own head, locate a ridge behind your ear, and dub it the locus of poor life choices. Sound fades, replaced by a subtler vibration, the hum of molecules locking into fixed orbits. Your breathing sinks, inhale for 3 ticks, exhale for 5. A brick dusts your sleeve with orange powder mineral makeup for the sleep-deprived. You drift, their messages dissolving into half-formed nouns. Hold shape, river. As the yard seals its secrets under a crust of frost. The hum arrives as frost crystals bloom on your eyelashes. A man's voice fraying through distant pines. You turn toward the woodpile, its silhouette gnawed by termites. But the singer stays hidden. Night watchmen once patrolled these yards, singing fewer litter fire songs to prove they hadn't dozed off. This one's rendition lacks rhythm, like a drunkard playing accordion inside a cupboard. A verse surfaces between coal clinks. Und die Siegel, die Ditch Trajan. And the bricks that carry you, the rest dissolves, mangled by wind or shame. Silesian draftsmen whisper about a watchman who serenaded Kilns in 1945, convinced Hitler's ghost hid in the chimneys. You cup your ears, catch only the ache between notes, a minor key drilling into molars. He coughs, a phlegmy eruption resumes with renewed flatness. His boot scrapes gravel a metronome, missing every third beat. Historians still argue whether these songs warded off thieves or just masked the sobs of men paid in bread and blisters. You count mismatched syllables, 19 steps behind the woodpile, before his lantern bobs into view. The watchman's face stays shadowed, his mittened hands fumbling a sausage-shaped object, not a flashlight, a vinegar-soaked rag wrapped around a burning branch. Fire prevention, 1800 style. He waves it like a maestro's baton, embers sketching orange ellipses in the dark. His next song mutates, a polka beat welded to a funeral dirge. Am Brunnen vor dem Tor, the iconic linden tree ode, but he substitutes Sieglofen for Brunnen. Brick kiln instead of well. Clever, your chuckle steams the air. He pauses, turns toward the sound. Silence stretches, frost crackling like cellophane, until he spits and resumes, louder. The rag torch drips vinegar, sour smoke, blending with kiln ash. Workers once drank this acrid brew for strength, gargled it to soothe clay-dust throats. You swipe a finger through the drizzle taste, pickled regret. A dog barks miles away, the watchman's voice breaks, shifting octaves mid-word. His falsetto could shatter a chemist's speakers. Legend claims a 1927 fire started when a watchman's high C ignited methane pockets. You flatten against brick, just in case, but only his dignity burns tonight. The melody unravels, whistling fills the gaps. Or is that wind through kiln vents? He stomps, boots crunching frozen puddles. The rhythm syncs with your pulse. Milkmen will arrive soon, clattering bottles over cobblestones. But for now, this off-key bard owns the limelight. He passes close enough to smell mustard and unwashed wool, then veers west. The song dims each step, sponging another note from existence. Last week, you read about a musicologist who mapped watchman's roots via song decay, published a score called Fading Vigil. You hum the vanishing tune, already forgetting its shape, a oral tradition crumbling like bad mortar. 3 crows mock him from a pine branch, their caws sharper than his high notes. He lobs a coal chunk, they scatter, laughing in avian. Their wings riffle the air, a standing ovation for the worst concert you've ever witnessed. His lantern disappears behind the mixing shed, final notes hanging like shed snakeskins. The yard exhales, kiln ticks regain prominence, a duet of cooling clay, and your own joints popping. You pat the nearest brick, still slightly warm, and wonder if it rated the performance. Dawn's first gray smears the east, your breath plumes thin, as the watchman's voice did. Workers will inherit his song's carcass, stomp its remnants into the thawing clay. You pocket a vinegar-charred stick, souvenir of a requiem for no one, as frost surrenders to the truck's distant growl. The vinegar-charred stick still warms your palm when your heel catches on iron, a crescent shape buried in ash. You dig with numb fingers, unearth wire cutters fossilized by rust. Its teeth resemble a comb used to groom hellhounds, each prong caked with brick dust, older than your grandparents' war stories. Silesian workshops mass-produced these in the 1850s. Wire-cut bricks replaced hand-molded ones, a revolution in paving Weimar's boulevards. This specimen's handles sport callous grooves, someone's grip worn smooth as a river stone. You test the spring, petrified hinges scream flakes of oxidized metal snow onto your boots. Local lore claims tools that sliced 10,000 bricks developed souls. A Breslau priest exorcised a trowel in 1891, said it whispered Masonic secrets during Mass. You flip the cutter, spot no sigils, just pitted steel and the maker's stamp. Vogel and Cern, the Vogel sons, all died in the same kiln explosion. Their factory became a cobbler's shop that only sold left shoes. Ash moss carpets the lower handle, velvet green and stubborn as lichen. Historians still debate whether workers preserved worn tools as talismans or just hated bending over to toss them. You brush the moss. It powders your thumb, smells like a library book left in a damp cellar. Midnight shift crews named their cutters. This one's etched Hunsrat near the pivot point. Dograt, accurate, the jaws snag your shirt cuff, hold on like a stubborn terrier. You shake free, the tool clatters, awakens echoes from coal bunkers. A brick near your knee bears parallel grooves, testament to this cutter's last bite. The clay remembers. It's why fired bricks outlive their makers. Your flashlight reveals fossils in the steel, microscopic brick shards fused with iron. Tiny meteors from a forgotten stratosphere. Workers dunked hot cutters in horse troughs to cool steam showers that warped the blades. You picture some mustachioed Vogel snapping a quenched tool, cursing through tobacco stains, while apprentices stifled giggles. The factory foreman's codebook listed cutter suicide as valid cause for bereavement leave. Orange flickers dance across the teeth. Your headlope mirrors the dying kiln's pulse. This close, the rust patterns resemble a map, continents shaped by neglect, Antarctica's a corroded pit, Europe's edges drip with iron icicles. You snap a photo. No, it'll just look like a broke tool. A beetle scrambles from the hinge, armor glittering blue-black, like spilled printer ink. It freezes, antennae quivering, then marches toward your shoelace. You redirect it with the cutter, an interstate system for arthropods. Wind whistles through the tool's wire notch, a tinny middle C. Workers used to play folk tunes on spare cutters during breaks, 19th century mouth harps. You purse your lips, blow, get a wheeze that scares the beetle. Close enough. The jaws still bite, you test them on a willow twig. Splinters fly, an exclamation point of sap hits your cheek. This relic's toothache painful sharpness surprises you. Steel doesn't soften, just gets angrier with age. 3 notches on the handle, a tally, or a maker's mark. You rub soot into the grooves, watch them fill like miniature canals. A museum in Krakow displays a cutter with 57 notches, each a confirmed kiln fire started. Arsonist or overworked saint? Staff won't say. Your palm sweats around the handle, leaves a salt outline in the rust. Someone else's salt crystallized here. A century ago, their sweat DNA mingling with your own. An intimacy hotter than the kilns. Dawn bleaches the eastern kilns, their glow reduced to dying pilot lights. Trucks thunder closer, the yard's fragile spell cracks at the edges. You rebury the cutter halfway, a dagger in a ashy cake, its teeth still grinning up like a dictator's birthday portrait. The beetle returns, claims the handle as its citadel. Let it. You pocket a rust flake, tongue testing its bitterness, as workers' voices shred the last of the night. Your boots crunch toward the gates, each step heavier, as if the cutter's gravity tugs at your soles. Halfway to the exit, you realize the tool never let go. A triangular gash mars your jeans, fabric sheared cleaner than any modern blade, a final argument from the past, proof that no cathedral survives without teeth. You almost turn back to apologize, but the yard's already rebuilding itself in daylight's glare. Your heel nudges ceramic shards, half buried in ash, cracks radiating from a kiln's crumbling base. A jug's curved belly emerges, amber glaze licked black by decades of heat. Its neck clings to a dried river of resin, molten gold turned to tar. Burnt honey punches your sinuses, thick and medicinal, like a beekeeper's funeral pyre. 18th century Silesian brickmakers took mead breaks, fermented their own, using monastery recipes. This jug's arch matches inventory lists from the Cistercian abbey at Lubiaz, the same monks who designed Europe's first parabolic kiln. A fingertip skims the resin, it resists, then yields like cold candle wax. The taste blooms clover and charcoal molasses left to scorch in a lead cauldron. Your tongue maps the aftermath, smoke where sweetness suffocated. Workers allegedly poured libations here nightly, dribbled mead to appease kiln spirits. Local archives mention a 1903 strike halted by honey-slick visions. A foreman's journal blames tainted yeast, but your throat burns clean. Historians still argue whether additives, hemp, dried juniper flavored the brew, or masked arsenic in bad batches. You gag discreetly, spit into ash. The resin clings, a stubborn roommate on your molars. Moonlight glints off the jug's intact handle, its curve cradling a spider's silk hammock. 3 generations of orb weavers sway, bloated on flies, drunk from fermented drips. You're the uninvited guest crashing awake, hovering until the arachnids retreat. Legends whisper of a schizophrenic hive nearby bees who built comb from mortar ash. Their honey supposedly cured gout. Brickmakers' wives traded secret jars under full moons. The comb disintegrated in 1942 when Allied bombs shook hives for miles. Your knife prized the jug's last fragment, clay so brittle it powders at the edge. A thumbprint spirals under the glaze, century-old ridges preserved in vitrified honey. You press your own against it, summer sweat meeting winter sweat, and the world tilts. Air smells of scorched marzipan. The kiln behind you breathes, expelling oven-dried pollen, trapped since Bismarck's reign. Workers called this loaf wind, claimed it cured melancholy. You inhale deep, taste rye fields, and a blacksmith's forgotten lunch. A wet spot darkens the ash beneath the jug. Digging reveals a brick stamped 1901, its surface pitted by centuries of libations. Mead pooled here, seeping into pores, clay drunk on the saliva of dead men. Footprints circle the site, narrow boots with curled toes. Women weren't allowed in yards after dark, yet someone paced here nightly. Archives list a foreman's daughter who delivered inspiration tonics. Doesn't specify if those tonics poured or drank. A centipede erupts from the brick, antennae tap dancing across your wrist. You flick it away, watch it scurry into the jug's shadow. Its legs kick up sugar crystals, tiny diamonds in the moonlight. Dawn's first blush creeps over the eastern stacks. The yard exhales ash like a spent cigar. Trucks growl beyond the gate, their diesel stench clashing with the honey's ghost. You pocket the handle, edges sharp as a betrayal pact, and lick residual resin. The taste evolves, burnt caramel cut with something fungal, cellar rot, and desperation. Images flicker, steel gray eyes, a flour sack apron, hands rinsing a jug in snowmelt. Sleep deprivation or communion. Workers swore kiln gods spoke through mead fumes, a notion management discouraged. You wipe sticky lips, stain your sleeve ochre. The spider rebuilds its web, silk threads tremble, as you walk away counting backward through honeyed centuries. Your boot crushes a dead bee, its wings fused into a brittle scroll, unreadable like everything else here. The gate squeals, daylight pours in, but the burnt honey lingers. A refugee flavor on your tongue, seeking asylum, as caffeine and toothpaste storm the borders. Coal crunches underfoot each step, releasing pockets of captured warmth from yesterday's firing. The heap looms, a black glacier frozen mid-slide, its edges glittering with mica flecks. Something small rustles below the surface, a skittering counterpoint to the kiln's perpetual groan. You freeze, scan the shadows, until twin amber discs flare to life 6 paces ahead. The barn owl tilts its head, feathers ruffling into a spectral collar. Silesian brickmakers imported this coal from Upper Silesian mines, 19th century trains hauling geological sunlight. Workers swore certain veins glowed faintly, claimed they could read newspapers by lamplight during night shifts. The owl's talons flex, inked hooks against the soot. Its prey moves again, a mouse nosing through cinders, where the kiln's residual heat mimics dawn. Historians still argue whether these yards attracted rodents for warmth, or if foremen deliberately seeded grain to keep cats employed. One wing unfurls, a serrated whisper. The mouse freezes, mistaking the death swoop for a cloud sweeping moonlight. Impact registers as a thump, a muffled squeak, wings hammering air like wet laundry in a gale. You exhale, realizing you'd clutched a coal lump hard enough to flake graphite onto your palm. The owl ascends, its silhouette shrinking to a crooked cross against the stars. A single feather spirals down, vanishing into the mound. Workers once lined their boots with owl plumes, fringe insulation against frostbitten toes. Patrol guards overlooked the practice. Superstition held the birds carried ancestors' souls. 3 feathers meant good luck, 4 invited kiln explosions. Ash swirls where the hunt occurred, filling the mouse-shaped void. You crouch, brush carbon aside, expose a thumb-sized ceramic shard. Glaze patterns match floor tiles from the demolished Breslau Opera House, debris repurposed as kiln filler. Wind combs through the heap, whistling across coke pores. The sound evolves, a breathy melody, reminiscent of Venetian glassblowers' songs. An 1898 strike journal mentions Hungarian migrant workers humming similar tunes, melancholy notes woven into night shifts. Your knees protest, rising too fast as the owl's cry splits the darkness. Its echo caroms off brick stacks, a sonic boomerang. Static crackles in your ears, pressure shifts, signaling trucks on some distant highway. Fossilized leaves pepper the coal, Jurassic ferns pressed into carbon tablets. You pocket one, nature's dictatorship pamphlet, proof that even chlorophyll bows to heat and time. The owl watches from a sagging power line, nestling its meal between talons. Moonlight betrays movement below. Another mouse emerges, drawn to the same warm mirage. Evolution hasn't updated the firmware, still conflating thermal radiation with sunrise. Natural selection's tragic punchline played out nightly in this ashen coliseum. The owl ignores this second chance, gorged enough to prioritize digestion. It preens, stropping its beak against the wire, while coal shifts beneath your boots. Each settling lump whispers the same truth: ice ages, compressed into flammable tombs. 3 fire bricks jut from the heap, overfired rejects from a temperature tantrum. Their bloated forms resemble melted tombstones, warped witnesses to the yard's cycles. You press a palm against one, expecting radiation, but find only passive warmth. Dawn's advance guards tint the horizon pink, creeping like dye through wool. Trucks encroach, their grumbling vibration through soil. The owl detaches from the wire, silent as smoke, leaving you alone with the coal's fading heartbeat. Your footprints map retreat carbon dust, puffing like rogue smoke signals. A beetle navigates the ruins of the hunt, armor gleaming like miniature knight's plate. You step over it, granting passage, as the yard's nocturnal opera gives way to diesel growls. Pale light bleeds into the eastern kiln's mouth, its slow creep turning ash-gray bricks to dusty rose. You hover near the main furnace, its breath now shallow, exhalations of heat rippling the dawn air. 19th century Silesian yards timed firings with military precision. Dawn's cooler temperatures prevented crazing cracks in the clay. A stray cat emerges, licking condensation off a kiln's flue. The morning's first worker claiming its tribute. Shadows retreat like wet paint dissolving, laying bare the night's alchemy. Rows of fresh bricks stand rigid, their red skins still radiating yesterday's fire. You press a thumb to one, expect sear, but meet only stubborn warmth. Workers called this the holy hour, when kiln gods transferred power from flame to form. Ash mutes your footsteps as you circle the cooling stacks. Each brick sweats microscopic droplets, silent apologies for becoming permanent. Historians still argue whether the zigzag patterns in older yards functioned as windbreaks or whispered secret messages to rival brickyards. A sparrow lands, pecking at mortar flecks, its beak clinking against the scorched glaze. Dew glues coal dust to your boots, leaving semi-precious streaks of obsidian and quartz. The last kiln tenders swore dawn moisture strengthened final products, kissing the strength in. Reality, probably folklore, but you lick your finger anyway, taste char and illusion. Metal creaks overhead, the yard's lone surviving crane sways in the breeze. Its rusted hook drips petrified clay, a decade of drips frozen mid-fall. Preservationists lobbied to demolish it last spring. Locals protested by leaving votive bricks at City Hall. Your shadow stretches, suddenly bold as the sun breaches the eastern stacks. Heat shimmers, retreat into brick pores, daylight inheriting the watch. A forklift chokes awake in the distance, its diesel snarl rupturing the yard's meditative silence. 3 workers amble past, their voices sandpapered from night shifts. One kicks a reject brick, sending it skidding into a puddle. Steam erupts, the ghost of the kiln's wrath, before water swallows the fragment whole. You half expect a hiss of protest, but the yard keeps its secrets. Morning breeze combs through the coal heap, flushing out a scrap of browned newspaper. Headlines from 1971. A labor strike settled over vodka and pickled herring. The ink smudges under your thumb, proof that everything here resists permanence except the bricks themselves. Anthropologists found child-sized handprints in nearby clay pits, small helpers pressing thumbs into wet mortar. No records survive of their names, just indentations smaller than your palm. You mimic the gesture, leave your own mark in a soot patch, watch wind erase it within seconds. Sunlight infiltrates the mixing pits, exposing grooves where countless shovels scraped earth into submission. Damp clay glistens, an army of mud tongues waiting to be shaped. The cat reappears, trailing you, fur-dusted orange, like a half-baked creation. A clock strike clangs 7 times, its sound warped by distance into a drunkard's gong. Pigeons erupt from the crane's cab, wing beats flexing the air. Their flight traces the path of a demolished chimney, once the tallest in Lower Silesia. Now just another footnote in a brickyard sigh. You kneel beside a cracked foundation stone, its 1843 engraving weathered to braille. Workers used to hide time capsules in cornerstone mortar, love letters, lockets, teeth. Municipal law banned it after someone entombed a rival's still smoldering pipe, nearly reignited a kiln. The cat rubs against your calf, leaving a stripe of ash on your jeans. Its purr harmonizes with the growing rumble of delivery trucks, beasts here to claim the night's yield. One driver waves, a coffee-stained salute as he backs into the loading zone. Birdsong threads through the compound, a dunnock's shrill notes piercing the diesel growl. You spot its nest wedged in a kiln's air vent, twigs fused into a ceramic cradle. 2 eggs gleam inside, speckled blue, as Oder River pebbles life persists even here. Foremen's voices rise, a staccato blend of Polish and fatigue. Their clipboard taps sync with the cat's retreating footsteps, both marching to shifts they never chose. You linger, palming a brick fragment, until sunlight burns the coolness from its core. The yard exhales, a final sigh of settling cinders as you walk the last aisle. Your shadow walks ahead now, no longer a specter, but an obedient thing. It stops where the gates once stood, where gravel surrenders to asphalt, the city hungrier than any kiln. Boots heavy with dust, you step onto the sidewalk. A street cleaner eyes your coal-smeared soles, shakes his head, sprays the pavement where you stood. Water swirls gray-red, a temporary mosaic, before draining into grates stamped "Made in Silesia." The street cleaner's hose water soaks your cuffs, its chill crawling up your ankles like reverse wildfire. You backtrack toward the clay pits, drawn by groundwater's whisper. Mud sucks at your soles, 19th century Silesia beneath your feet. Brickmakers diverted the Oder's main channel in 1854, starving floodplains to quench their kilns. What remains? These oozing pits, their sludge still dreaming of river currents. You kneel, press your ear to cold mud. A liquid heartbeat thrums miles deep, as if the earth swallowed the Oder whole. Academics mapped ghost streams under the yard, capillaries, feeding no one. Locals tell dumber tales, claim night shifts, hear Slavic river gods cursing in the slurry. You hold your breath, hear only a distant sewer main's burp. So much for divine vengeance. Sinkholes sometimes yawn near the eastern fence, swallowing wheelbarrows and OSHA compliance. Last year, one vomited up a pewter spoon from the 30 Years' War. Archaeologists called it exciting. Night guards called it another tripping hazard. Clay seeps between your fingers, gelatinous and accusatory. Workers once smuggled vodka in water jugs here, hid bottles under false labels, reading liquid silica. Management eventually caught on started tasting random samples. Oral histories disagree on whether this improved productivity. A bullfrog croaks from a stagnant puddle, last survivor of the original wetlands. You have expected to quote Schiller, or at least demand a union contract. Instead, it belches Dives, leaves expanding ripples that mimic century-old quarry explosions. The pits exhale a fungal musk, decaying reeds, and diesel runoff. Historians still argue whether Count von Hohenlohe flooded his own estate to bankrupt rival kilns, or just really hated herons. You pocket a pebble, wonder if it's a petrified croissant from some long-dead clerk's breakfast. Moonlight bleeds through a ruptured cloud, turning puddles to quicksilver. Your reflection wavers, nose elongated, chin dissolved, a Picasso drowned in a teacup. When the brickyard expanded in 1902, they paved over a village well, its bucket chain still dangling into nothingness. Rain begins needle pricks that crater the clay. Workers called these showers the devil's kiln, cooling efforts too fast, cracking half-formed bricks. You turn your face upward, let droplets tattoo your eyelids, taste acid and airborne gypsum. Something glints in the muck, a shard of cobalt glass. Early 20th century, poison bottles used that hue apothecary blue to warn illiterate drinkers. You sketch a smiley face in the mud with its jagged edge artistry for the frog's approval. It does not applaud. Dawn's first light warms the back of your neck, the shift change looming. You trek toward the gates, each step heavier with stolen silt. Behind you, the pits gurgle, a wet punchline to your midnight curiosity. Trucks rumble past, their loads of fresh bricks, already sweating in the humidity. One driver flicks a cigarette butt into the slurry, a tiny Viking funeral for nicotine and hindsight. The ember dies mid-hiss, snuffed by the odor's ghostly spit. Your boots leave ternary rhythms in the mud, squelch, crunch, squelch. A rhythm the clay remembers, 3-beat shoveling patterns from when children worked the pits. Their smaller footprints washed away long ago, yours will fade by noon. The gate watchman nods, his thermos radiating the scent of burnt chicory. He doesn't ask why you're caked in muck. You don't ask why he wears mismatched socks. Some questions dissolve in the humidity, unfit for kiln or riverbed. Asphalt reclaims you, its grid laid over swampland like a parental hand. You glance back, the pit's now just a smear of primordial ooze. Even the frog's gone quiet, perhaps composing its manifesto in the deep. Your sock squelches. You keep walking. The road's gravel bites through your mud-caked soles. A tactile divorce from the yard's clay embrace. A crumbling wall rises, its bricks, erosion-knuckled, each cleft cradling spiderwebs and cigarette butts. You pause, press your thumb into mortar the color of dried blood. Child laborers mixed this slurry in 1883, 9-hour days for 80 pfennigs. Their pay stubs survive in Breslau's archives, tiny rectangles of resentment. You squint, try to parse their fingerprints in the crumble, but it's just grit stinging your eyes. 3 tiles jut from the wall's base, smoother than the rest, edges rounded like worn coins. Legends claim a girl shaped these. No records confirm her. Just stories foremen told to scare apprentices, make 'em right, or the ghost lass'll mortar your boots to the kiln floor. Moonlight rubs the tiles' surfaces. No spectral handprints glow. Historians still argue whether Wilhelmina factories employed underage girls, or if this myth bloomed from export invoices, misprinting kinderform child mold as Mädchenform girls mold. You kick a pebble, watch it clink against the middle tile. An owl hoots, its call echoing the night shifts, long gone lunch whistles. Workers swore they'd hear giggles during brick stacking, a crisp sound among men's wheezes. One account describes clay flying faster from the mixer, as if small hands pitched it. You're pretty sure that's called gravity, but who's arguing with ghosts? You crouch, wipe dew off a tile. Faint grooves swirl maybes of fingerprints. Or just a board, workers' trowel doodles. The Rocklaw Museum displays a haunted brick. From this yard, 6 fingerprints pressed into its face. Carbon dated, 1906. Lab blamed a worker with sticky dough on his hands. Wind riffles your collar, carries the burnt honey stink from Kiln 19. Day shifters tell tourists the best bricks got blessed by the daughter's touch, local shtick for upcharging masonry. You wonder if your apartment's walls contain any, and why your shower tiles keep cracking. A truck backfires blocks away, the tiles shiver in their mortar beds. 19th century contractors preferred teen laborers, smaller hands, detailed ornamental bricks. They'd rotate kids hourly to prevent clay claw. You flex your own cramping fingers, glad OSHA exists sorta. Your phone buzzes, a friend's meme about artisanal toast. You snap the tile's photo, caption it, Authentic trauma, vibe check. No signal sends it. The message dies midair. A digital sacrifice to the brick gods. One tile's corner chips under your nail, revealing a spiral of quartz. Geologists identified 53 mineral types in Silesian clay, including traces of Baltic amber. Workers traded these glittery flecks like pirate gold. Pocketing the fragment feels wrong. You slip it back, its sparkle snuffed. The local brewery makes Brickmaker's daughter Pilsner. Label shows a wraith in a sooty apron. 7% ABV, tastes like licking a kiln door. You prefer gin. Less sedimentary. Dew soaks through your knees, the cold nostalgic for when this earth was seabed. If the daughter existed, really existed, she'd be bones in some pauper's field. No rustling petticoats, just calcium leaching into subsoil. You stand shaking off the damp, and the overpriced liberal arts degree that made you romanticize proletarian ghosts. Headlights slash across the wall, a security jeep rolling its nightly vomitron. You press into shadow, heart thudding like a pugilist's speed bag. The tiles glow briefly under halogen, edges sharpening into a rictus grin. Tires crunch gravel, engine drones fade. The wall exhales. Rumor says a foreman's diary mentioned a small striker named Lot, fined for singing hymns too slow. Archivists found 37 lots in payroll ledgers, all male, either a quill slip or proof of nothing. You imagine her anyway, apron pockets full of stolen clay, molding miniature cats and castles mid-shift. Management never noticed, too busy tallying bricks. The real artistry dissolved in rain, left no fossils, just this persistent maybe haunting the yard. Dawn pokes the horizon, blue seeping into kiln smoke. You trace the tiles one last time, their surfaces warming. Maybe ghosts hate daylight, or maybe, like everyone else, they clock out at sunrise. Your index finger pauses mid-trace, the tile's warmth retreating as dawn bleaches the yard blue-gray. A rustle draws your eye upward, 30 feet of soot-streaked flue pipe. There, where heat warped the metal, a tumorous lump sprouts. Climbing the maintenance ladder feels like trespassing, each rung's squeak echoing through hollow stacks. The nest isn't twigs anymore. Fire baked its fibers into a terracotta bowl. Inside, 5 eggshells, fragile as communion wafers, their blue bleached to bone. Sparrows colonized Silesian kilns during the 30 Years' War, finding warmth amid Europe's chaos. Workers considered them lucky. The ash acted as pesticide against mites. You lean closer, smell scorched feathers fused into the nest's underside. Archaeologists found 6 similar nests near Oppel each, containing mummified hatchlings. Conspiracy forums claim their failed alchemy experiments, turning birds into clay messengers. You resist the urge to poke a shell, ashamed of your own destructive curiosity. Wind hisses through the flue, playing the pipe like a fractured ocarina. Historians still argue whether sparrows sought kilns for shelter, or if thermal drafts tricked their migration maps. A fleck of shell spins downward, carried on a spiral of heated air. Your breath fogs the ceramic cradle. 19th century nests brought 15 groschen on the collector's market. Rich ladies displayed them as morbid garnishes. This one's free for the taking, and somehow more valuable because of it. A shadow darts past. The mother sparrow returns with a beetle carcass. She freezes, wings spread like burnt origami. You're both statues now, pilgrims at the same altar. Her black eyes reflect your face, tiny and warped in the convex lens of her stare. Workers' journals mention hatchlings, surviving kiln firings, their songs emerging from hot brick. You've read the X-rays at the Natural History Museum, tiny skeletons suspended in masonry. One brick bears wing impressions, a fossilized escape attempt. The bird drops her prize. It bounces off the flue into chimney darkness. Her chirp cracks the morning, a 5-note curse. You retreat rung by rung, the ladder's rust tattooing your palms. Back on solid earth, the nest seems smaller, just debris wedged in industrial entrails. Your phone's camera magnifies the structure's weave, individual grass blades mineralized into a single entity. The flash startles the sparrow, she flees in a spray of soot. Brickyard ledgers recorded avian expenditures, 12 pence monthly for nest removal. Yet this one endured decades of firings. You envision generations rebuilding each spring, adding threads to the ceramic tapestry. Darwinism via Inferno. 3 eggshells disintegrate as you watch, collapsing into pixelated dust. Only 2 remain, architects of a failed dynasty. Dawn's glare peels shadows from the yard, exposing your sentimentality as cheap and fleeting as the nest itself. A workman's shout ricochets off brick walls, the day shift claiming their territory. You pocket a sliver of fallen shell, its edge jagged enough to draw blood. The sparrow doesn't return. Some altars only work in darkness. Your sleeping bag sags between brick ridges, each course stacked like vertebrae in a fossilized spine. 3 million fired clays bear down, roughly 1 per Silesian resident during Frederick the Great's reign. You try calculating their combined tonnage. Give up numbers that large belong to tectonic plates, not human hands. A jagged edge pokes your shoulder through nylon. 18th century quality control marks still scar its side, 3 parallel grooves, signaling 2nd grade. Historians still argue whether these codes tracked defective batches or recorded which children molded them during growth stunt shifts. The groove fits your thumbnail perfectly, age 14, perhaps small enough to wedge into kiln gaps. Cold seeps upward despite the thermal pad, centuries of dampness stored in ceramic pores. You recall the Wrocław University study. Silesian bricks contain trace pollen from extinct rye strains. Tonight, you're lying atop a fossilized breadbasket. Something clinks as you roll sideways, a tin button wedged in mortar. Workers often pressed personal items into fresh clay. A 1727 inventory lists, rings, teeth, and one communion medal. Yours bears half a coat of arms, likely prized off a dead hussar's uniform. The back reads Für Elise, but your phone flashlight reveals the truth. For Eli's, some brickmaker's botched engraving. Wind moans through gaps in the yard wall. A sound brickdust has polished since the 7 Years' War. 3 Napoleonic musket balls still lodge in the South Kiln. Local guides claim they ring like bells when struck. You've tested this. They don't. Dawn leaks through chinks in the stack. Your shadow splays across the bricks like a pressed flower. Each block contains a quart of the Oder River's vanished tributaries, liquid squeezed from mud and memory. 19th century hydrologists found brick wells. Here outperformed concrete, clay pores, filtering typhus from floodwater. Modern replication attempts failed. The river knew secrets no blueprint captured. Your spine aligns with mortar lines, rigid as the dead foreman who demanded perfect 90-degree corners. 16-hour shifts calcified his workers' joints into living T-squares. You shift, vertebrae crack like kindling, and briefly envy their fossilization. A brick near your left ear sweats rust-red liquid, the iron-rich clay bleeding after night rains. Superstitious laborers painted doorframes with this ooze, warding off the pneumonia that culled their ranks each winter. Modern microscopy shows it's just manganese oxide. Still, you wipe a streak on your collar, an offering to the kiln gods. 3 sparrows land on the stack, pecking at efflorescent salt. Their weight, less than an ounce, combined barely registers. It takes 7 seconds to realize they're descendants of that scorched nest in section 19. Evolution's punchline: birds thriving where humans left calluses and corpses. The yard exhales a final plume of soot, last night's firings complete. Your phone buzzes with a UNESCO alert about preserving industrial heritage sites. The screen's glow reflects in a puddle ripples, warping it into a hammer and sickle. You pocket the device. Some ruins refuse to digitize. Workers unearthed a mass grave here in 1962. 94 skeletons, curled like commas in a coal seam. Archaeologists blamed cholera. Old wives whispered of a bricklayer's strike gone fatal management, boarding them inside a kiln during negotiations. The truth bakes halfway between records and rage. Your breath syncs with distant machinery, a backhoe at the modern factory across town. It scoops clay from pits these workers' great-great-grandchildren abandoned. The rhythm matches their shoveling songs, same tempo, different verbs. Progress as a palimpsest. Dew beads on the brick beneath your cheek, each droplet magnifying clay particles into miniature planets. 700 men died building Berlin's Anhalter Bahnhof with this very yard's output. Their names eroded faster than the bricks. You trace a water trail, its path echoing rail lines laid in 1846. Footsteps approach not day shift workers, but a fox. It pauses 3 stacks away, sniffing. For 60 years, this yard hosted a vixen who stole gloves to line her den. She's taxidermied in the Glavitsa Museum, now glass, eyes reflecting visitor selfies. This one's mangier, wiser. It pisses on a kiln foundation, territory claimed, and vanishes. Light now blanches the yard into a photo negative. You rise, knees popping, and brush brick dust from your clothes. It resists, having outlasted wool and skin before. Somewhere beneath your footprint, a worker's button turns to slag, its slogan now just carbon and conjecture. The sleeping bag clings to its grid of bricks as you roll it up. 3 centuries from now, archaeologists will find this scene recreated. Plastic instead of flax, synthetic fibers mimicking sweat-stained linen. History as a nesting doll. The weight remains. Your fingers brush splintered wood as you stand. The stump's rings worn smooth, where palms gripped in stolen breaks. The mug tilts, chipped rim catching first light, its insides lacquered with decades of tannin stains. Cold tea leaves cling like drowned ants, last steeped when Stalin's tanks rolled through Rockla. You dip a pinky, sweetness blooms, 4 sugars curdling into amber cement. Workers called this widow's brew double-strength chicory, cut with beet syrup during Prussia's 1847 coffee embargo. Historians still argue whether it fueled productivity or just blurred the edge of 16-hour shifts. The handle's thumbprint grooves match forensic scans of a 1893 brickyard strike leader, rancid trivia from a Glavitsa archive tour. A fly drowns in the residue, legs kicking at a glucose glacier. You flick it off, watch it spiral into ash. Its ancestors feasted on the 1945 Breslau siege corpses. Digestion loops tighter than mortar patterns. The stump weeps where the mug sat, sap and sugar merging into snail tracks. 19th century medics prescribed tea laced with brick dust for clay deficiency, a remedy killing more workers than silicosis. You scrape the mug's rim, a crescent of crystalline gunk flakes off. Tastes like your ex's caramel latte, $6. $50 at that gentrified place near the museum. Wind riffles pages of a waterlogged ledger, half buried under the stump. June 1937 entries list 16 volunteers for the night shift, all names erased except K. Nowak. His time card showed triple shifts weekly. Some say he was paying for his sister's tuberculosis treatments. Others insist the foreman owed him 40 zloty from a cockfight. 3 wasps investigate the mug's rim, their waists cinched like Victorian corsets. 1 crawls inside, drunkenly somersaults in the dregs. You recall a Warsaw University study proving wasps remember human faces. This one glares, you apologize to the universe. The stump's shadow stretches, pointing toward the coal chute. A 1978 safety report cited this spot for 7 tripping havoc incidents, workers concussed while sprinting for rationed tea bags. Management installed guardrails, hung a sign, caution, brewing ambition. Sunlight hits the mug's base, etched letter surface, R and V 1963. The V stood for Vaclav, a Czech defector who smuggled in Prague's spring protest leaflets. Employees found him frosting over in the 1981 snow, fingers still gripping a Samizdat pamphlet titled Burning Bricks. His thermos held thistle tea, or so the eulogies claimed. You drop the mug, it lands upright, miraculous as a Vatican saint. Workers considered unbroken vessels, a kiln god's blessing left them as offerings beneath new chimneys. Archaeologists found 19 intact mugs under the Katowice plant, each containing a mouse skull. Ritual. Prank. The curator's shrug cost €12. Your tongue swells, sugar and decay coating the roof of your mouth. A 1920s ballad drifts through the yard's far gate, a caretaker's radio mangling Dua Lipa. The beat syncs with your retreating steps, each brick crunch, a metronome click. The mug shrinks in the distance, a boil on the stump's bark. 3 crows land, peck at their reflection in the dregs. One flies off with the wasp in its beak, breakfast secured. You inhale scorched earth, exhale Starbucks, residue walk into morning's yawn. The kiln's breath licks your neck as you unroll the sleeping bag, its synthetic fibers crackling with static ghosts. You wedge it between brick pallets, mattress of the damned, and sip yourself into a nylon cocoon. Heat radiates through the ground, your hip bones conducting the furnace's heartbeat. Somewhere beneath you, 3 meters down, lie the 1672 remains of Jan, the devout, a bricklayer who fused to a scorched crucible. Archaeologists found his left kneecap bonded with clay, proof piety won't save you from bad OSHA compliance. Your eyelids flutter, flames blur into a molten Rorschach blot. 17th century Silesians lined kilns with pig fat to prevent cracks, rendered lard tightening like a corset over brick skin. Now the scent invades your dreams, smoke curling into your lungs, your ribs hardening into terracotta. You try to scream, your jaw creaks, mortar dust spills from your mouth. Historians still argue whether the Walski brickyard's suicide pit was homicide. 27 skeletons stacked like cordwood, wrists bound with iron wire. You feel their phantom hands now pressing your shoulders into the kiln floor, molding you into something useful. Your toes lengthen, arches collapsing into flat planes. Useful, permanent. A wasp lands on your calcifying nose, its antennae brushing your now granular pores. Workers once believed stings boosted heat resistance. 19th century safety bulletins called it the idiot's vaccination. You welcome the venom. Let it crystallize your capillaries, turn your blood to slurry. Ribs fuse, joints lock, your scream becomes a steam whistle. Across centuries, a foreman nods approval. Good aggregate, he rasps, voice glazed with soot. The kiln gods demand form. You surrender curves, watch fingers flatten into rectangular blanks. Memory dissolves, childhood birthdays, last week's traffic jam, all sluiced away with excess clay. Only the yard remains, its contours etched into your quartz bones. A cricket lands on your new flat surface, scrubs its legs, sensing kinship with the half-alive. Dawn cracks your crust. You jolt awake, fingernails clawing forearms. Flesh rebounds, too soft, too pliant. The sleeping bag reeks of burnt hair, or is it your own singed regrets? Somewhere, Jan the devout laughs through his brick lips. You touch the kiln wall, still thrumming. Workers swore the best bricks sang when struck, C-sharp resonances, meaning optimal density. Your knock produces a wet thud, a butcher's fist on flank steak. 1870s payroll records show bonuses for harmonic inventory. Every chiming stack meant another schnapps ration. A rusted trowel gleams in weak sunlight, edge pitted from scraping failures. Imagine being the misfit brick, too crooked, too porous, tossed into the discard pit's amniotic mud. Your spine tingles, mutinous vertebrae threatening to slump. The yard exhales, ash motes catching in your eyelashes. Saint Vitus stares from a peeling shed mural, patron saint of brickmakers and neurological disorders. His eyes follow you, approving the temporary solidity of your joints. You lick cracked lips, taste yesterday's burnt honey and defeat. Shadows shrink, day shift cinder, blocks grind under truck tires. Somewhere a perfect brick cools, singing its atomic C-sharp, while you shiver in the half-light. Moonlight transforms the clay pits into a cracked ceramic plate, that fragile sheen begging for destruction. You crouch, knees popping like green wood in flame, and press a thumb through the surface. The crust size collapses, cold silt oozing over your hand like congealed candle wax. 16th century ledgers mention midnight clay harvesting. Workers swore full moon mud held fewer air bubbles. Historians still argue whether this was astronomy or sleep deprivation talking. Your fingers sink deeper, the earth's damp grip, reminding you of a mortician's handshake. 19th century apprentices allegedly buried their baby teeth here, offerings to the kiln gods for steady employment. A shard slips under your nail. No blood, just raw Silesian muck working its way into your DNA. Somewhere beneath this sludge, Prince Bishop Casimir's lost signet ring molders. Drunk bricklayer tossed it during his 1743 tour. Archaeologists keep petitioning to metal detect the yard. Owners refuse, superstitious about disturbing the clay matrimony. You scoop a handful, watch it drip in slow globs. Each plop echoes like German artillery shells, hitting the 1945 front. The pits became foxholes, soldiers pressing their rosaries into the walls. Local legends say, if you shape this mud at midnight, it'll harden, without firing ghost bricks for phantom buildings. Your attempt becomes a lopsided heart, veins of quartz glittering like crumbled cathedral glass. The foreman's great-great-granddaughter runs tour now, her TikTok videos viral. Number mud therapy trends among burnout influencers. Something metallic winks in the hole. Archaeologists still argue whether these iron flakes are tool fragments or shrapnel from Frederick the Great's supply wagons. The pit seems to inhale, sucking your wrist deeper, forearm vanishing past the elbow, you're half expecting teeth. But it's just suction, the same force that drowned 7 horses during the Great Clay Slide of 1911. Your bicep brushes something smooth glass. Porcelain. The pit relinquishes its prize with a lewd squelch. A doll's head one-eye socket, plugged with century-old grime. It stares, cracked bisque features, suggesting it witnessed multiple firings. Workers' children played here despite the dangers, their toys hardening into grotesque sculptures in the annealing sheds. A resemblance nags you. That vacant expression mirrors Saint Vitus's icon in the tool shed. Coincidence? Or did some blasphemous apprentice mock the patron saint of brickmakers? Your flashlight beam jitters. The doll's shadow becomes a giant on the pit wall, judging your nocturnal trespass. Wind riffles the clay crust, a sound like unglazed plates shifting in a downdraft. You pocket the doll fragment, instant karma. The pit bubbles, a methane belch carrying voices. Louder at new moon, old Frau Drescher claimed her grandfather heard Napoleonic soldiers cursing as they drowned in liquefied sediment. Your souls sink, suddenly standing in quicksand made of yesterday's bricks. Every struggle bonds you deeper, calves encased in primeval slurry. The moon ducks behind smoke stacks, your shadow dissolves, leaving you one with the hungry earth. Dawn's first spit hits the pit, false frost melting into primordial ooze. You extract your legs with a sound like God unclogging a drain. Ghostly handprints linger on your jeans, clay refusing to release its newest collaborator. Somewhere down the Oder River, a barge loaded with fresh bricks groans, its cargo singing C-sharp requiems in the fog. Wind teases the mixing yard's debris, your jeans still dripping ghost gray clay. An iron band rolls past, leftover from a barrel that once hauled mortar. You give it a kick. The hoop zips over cracked bricks, clang, clang, clanging like a drunk church bell. 19th century coopers supplied these hoops to brickyards, bundling shipments before railroads made barrels obsolete. Historians still argue whether the bands were recycled from whiskey casks or forged fresh to avoid wooden taint. 3 more hoops lean against a crumbling shed, their rust blossoms matching your knee stains. You squint, red-pitted Cyrillic lettering. Stye lan aveke eraka aveye made in Krakow, though how a Polish cooper's work wound up here. A 1886 scandal whispers in your skull Krakow Symphony, using brickyard hoops as percussion. Audience mistook the clatter for hail. Sunrise warms the iron under your palm. Workers once slid these bands over green brick stacks, cinching them tight as corsets. Your thumb finds dried pine resin. Coopers slathered it to prevent splintering. Or was that pig fat? The debate fills academic journals. You imagine beard-pulling professors dueling with calipers. One hoop won't budge, fused to the ground by decades of lime seepage. You lean into it, temple pressing cold metal, and catch the faintest hum. Local legends claim they amplified voices, brickmakers' wives, shouting lunch calls through them like megaphones. A museum in Wroclaw displays a scream hoop, allegedly used to rally strikers during the 1905 wage riots. The freed hoop wobbles, its spin warping reflections into funhouse distortions. You see your face stretched long, clay-caked hair eyes like two olives in mortar. A joke forms wide the brick marry a hoop, but punchlines crumble. Dawn light hits the iron. Suddenly, it's 1923 Polish immigrants loading bricks onto steamships, hoops straining as America demands more sidewalks. Your boot nudges a half-buried band. It unearths with a screech. Beneath, mouse bones, skull tiny as a thimble, curled around a pewter button. Workers' pups chased rodents here, though the foreman's journals mention a terrier named Bolt who stole nails. The wind gusts, hoops roll in unison like trained beetles. You count their rotations, 19 before they topple into the clay pits. Iron against brick sings a metallic lullaby E-flat. Your tone-deaf cousin swears. You hum along, notes dissolving into chimney smoke. Morning shifts the breeze. Now it carries quicklime's tang, the yard's way of saying time to go. Last hoop spirals toward the river, its final clang echoing the barge captain's breakfast bell. You leave before the foreman arrives, but pocket a fleck of rust, proof you danced with the cooper's ghosts. The tool shed door groans, its hinge rusted into a permanent scream. Inside, cobwebbed rakes and a wooden icon wedged between paint cans. St. Vitus stares through cracked lacquer, one eyebrow cocked, as if questioning your life choices. Patron of dancers, comedians, and somehow brickmakers, historians note he's venerated here since the Black Death, when dancing mania had whole villages twitching through plagues. You lean closer, flake of gold leaf clinging to the saint's ankle. 16th century workers reportedly performed a jig before firing kilns. 3 hops left, 2 stamps right. A 1902 journal claims it prevented clay devils from cracking bricks, though most foremen called it drunkard's nonsense. Your boot scuffs the floor, grooves worn by decades of work boots, pivoting on damp boards. The saint holds a miniature crucifix, his other hand cups a rooster. Scholars insist the bird symbolizes vigilance. Local lore says it's a jab at early rising brickyard bosses. Mice have nibbled the rooster's beak into a blunt stump. You touch the vandalism. Your fingerprint smudges soot into the wound. Something glints under the icon's base, a pewter thimble threaded on a nail. Offerings workers left brick fragments stamped with thumbprints, hoping for strong wrists. In 1913, a bricklayer's daughter placed her cornhusk doll here. Legends say it danced by itself come midnight. You spot a modern addition, a Lego brick wedged in a splintered groove. Dust motes swirl where sunlight slices through a knothole. Medieval manuscripts describe Vitus Cathedra, a mythical chair where the saint judged bricklayers' sins. Those who sat too long allegedly developed knees of kiln ash. You don't sit, don't risk it. But the wooden floor creaks a descent. His eyes follow you, Byzantine style, gaze unnervingly alive. Czech princes once paraded his relics to bless castle foundations. Now he's here, eyeing a stack of WD-40 cans. A 1997 renovation almost tossed him into a dumpster. University interns fished him out, citing folkloric merit. You wonder if they got extra credit. Wind sneaks through gaps in the walls, whistling across the icon's hollow back. Acoustic quirk. The cavity amplifies whispers into metallic rasps. Workers used it to vent grievances without getting fired. Foreman's a dung beetle in human form, someone etched inside, German cursive softened by mold. Footsteps crunch gravel outside, you freeze. A maintenance man walks past, his radio spitting Polish hip-hop. St. Vitus's frown deepens, or is that shadow play? His left foot's worn smooth, generations of workers rubbed it for callous resistance. You press your palm there, wood warm as living flesh. Historians still argue whether brickmakers claimed Vitus, despite rival guilds. Masons had St. Stephen, smiths had St. Eligius. Maybe laying hot bricks felt like a dance, hips pivoting, arms swaying, embers swirling like a courting peacock's tail. Your knees pop as you crouch, aging joints begging for intercession. A spider descends over the saint's face, dangling on a thread like a daredevil rappelling a cliff. You blow gently, it swings toward the rooster, legs pedaling phantom bicycle wheels. Laughter bubbles up, stifled, because irreverence feels risky in saint's company. The shed exhales creaks, settling into mid-morning lethargy. You stand, brush sawdust off your jeans, nod once. He's the guardian of cracked knuckles and dark humor. The saint who knows blistered hands need jesters more than judges. Outside, backhoes growl, modernity devouring the yard's edges. His rooster tilts. A rusty nail surrenders the icon, slips sideways into eternal repose against a shovel handle. Dawn bleeds gray through the kiln yards, smoke-stained air. You kneel by a brick stack, dew trembling along mortar seams like beads on a rosary. Each droplet hesitates, choosing its path before plunging into the cracks. Workers once claimed these streaks mirrored the Oder's old riverbed, diverted in 1839 to expand the brickyards. They'd bet wages on where the water would flow by noon, though foremen dismissed it as drunkard's geography. Your fingertip follows a lazy S-curve, memory of current, preserved in liquid braille. A wasp lands on your wrist, drawn by salt. It pauses, black abdomen pulsing, then drinks sweat from your pores. Historians still argue whether bricklayers designed mortar patterns to guide rainwater, or if geology did the work for them. You let the insect feast, ancient truce between thirst and sting. 3 sparrows bathe in a puddle between bricks, wings slapping water into tiny tsunamis. Their chirps ricochet off the kiln walls, acoustics warping them into the creak of a pulley you heard last night. You half expect ghostly workers to lower another pallet of clay. The coolest droplets cluster where bricks overlap, microclimates born from shadows. Renaissance treatises describe kiln dew as a laxative for melancholy. Patients were told to lick it at sunrise. You resist the urge, though the air tastes faintly metallic, like sucked pennies. Wind combs through the stack, drops fall in sudden scattershots. One slides down a brick's chamfered edge, a perfect parabola, before shattering on your boot. Local lore claims the shape mimics the odor's final bend before vanishing underground. You sketch the curve in your notebook. It resembles a question mark. Something glints, a rusted nail wedged between two bricks. Sunlight hits its oxidized head, flashing copper green. Workers hammered these to anchor wandering rainwater. Or so speculated a 1920s brickyard manager, hopped up on phrenology. You wiggle the spike. It crumbles into orange dust. The yard exhales petrichor, wet clay and char. 19th century ledgers show bosses docking pay if rain delayed deliveries, even during biblical downpours. You press your palm to a damp stack, feel capillaries of moisture spreading beneath the surface. A rook lands atop the chimney, cawing harsh as a saw blade. Its shadow falls across the bricks, liquid lines rippling under the silhouette's edge. Ornithology journals from 1903 document birds stealing dew-slicked mortar for nest insulation. This one eyes you head tilted before dispatching a white splat onto the nearest pallet. Footprints appear in the softening mud, yours from last night, now filled with water. They glow silver, brief mirrors reflecting a puzzle piece sky. Workers called these soul pits, believing the water trapped fragments of their breath. You crouch, watch a water strider skate across your reflected eye. Heat rises as the sun climbs, but the north-facing stacks stay jeweled. Factory records mention apprentices sneaking ice chips from delivery wagons to prolong the dew. Most got caught, their frozen loot dripping betrayals across the foreman's office floor. The clock tower chimes 7 muffled bongs, warped by distance. Dew retreats, evaporating into yesterday's ghosts. Only the deepest cracks remain damp, dark veins in terracotta flesh. You press a cheek against the coolest brick, its surface imprinted with the faintest pulse. Wind shifts, carrying the vinegar tang of pickles from some worker's breakfast. The droplets are fading now, script of the river, rewritten daily in disappearing ink. You lick dry lips, taste the odor's afterlife on your skin. Your boothiel grinds something brittle glass shards, catching the weak dawn light. Crouching, you fish out a pocket watch, its face cracked like a frozen pond. Roman numerals freeze at III and VII 307, though which century's catastrophe stopped at mid-tick. The chain dangles limp and green verdigris blooming where a foreman's thumbprint once polished brass. Factory records show shifts ended at 3:15 sharp. Workers jinxed by St. Vitus's quarter hour if they clocked out early. You rub the crystal, your thumb comes away sparkling with powdered time. 19th century Silesian law required foremen to certify shifts via signed watch checks, a system rife with bribes and phantom workers. This one's interior engraving reads für Ernst, but census rolls list 12 Ernsts in the 1880s yard. You shake it, a faint rattle answers, some gear loose in its gut. Wind hisses through the kiln vents. 307 might be when the east chimney collapsed in 1902, or when a strikebreaker's bullet found Johann Kettler's lung during the 23 wage riots. Historians still argue whether 307 holds significance, or if entropy just favored that minute. The watch weighs more than it should, lead-lined maybe, against the kiln's magnetic fields. Workers whispered that stopped clocks trapped fragments of souls mid-scream, their hands jammed by dying breath. You press it to your ear, hear a tinnitus whine, or perhaps the ghost of a gear's last revolution. Rust blooms through the keyhole fractals, consuming the maid in glasshoot stamp. Dresden collectors would pay thousands for this corpse if it hadn't baked 70 summers in brickdust. You twist the crown stiff as a doorknob in a nightmare, then feel something yield. Tarnished gears croak into motion. The minute hand lurches forward and snaps back like a whipped dog. Clockmakers swear no spring could survive kiln heat. Yet here's the proof, twitching in your palm. 3 crows scatter from the chimney, their wings beating counter-rhythm to the broken mechanism. Legends claim the yard's first foreman died at his desk, watch still clutched, while workers looted the office. You check the case for blood tarnish, find only sweat stains from 100 paranoid grips. A ladybug crawls over XII, its shell red as cooling embers. Commoners used coffin nails to repair watch chains during the 1848 famines, metal too precious to bury. This chain's mended with a bent rivet, likely pried from a kiln door hinge. You loop it around your wrist, feel the chill of someone else's urgency against your pulse. The broken crystal pricks your thumb. A bead of blood swells, quivers, falls. It hits the face, blooming across VII like an accusation. Nightshift tales spoke of watches that drank foremen's blood to keep accurate time. You wipe yours clean, but the stain persists. Noon sun warms the brass, yet the hands refuse new orders. They shiver at 307, trembling toward VII before recoiling. You imagine Ernst, whoever he was pacing this same mud, screaming at frozen gears as wagons of unbaked bricks piled up. A diesel engine coughs to life beyond the fence, modern trucks hauling modern clay. The watch vibrates in your hand, ground humming with machinery it was never meant to witness. Its heart beats faster now, ticking 10 times a breath, a panicked animal sensing its obsolescence. You bury it under a brick stamped 1904. Let the next century's laborers puzzle over its riddle. Dawn completes its creep across the yard, hands free, eternal, unburdened by punctuality. Somewhere beneath your feet, rusted gears whisper 307, 307, 307 into the indifferent earth. Your spade bites into clay clods where the mill wheel once groaned, its skeleton now a rusted crown above the pits. Something winks in the dirt. A tin soldier's melted head, one arm fused to its side by decades of heat. Silesian workers often carved personal marks into tools, but this feels different. A child's toy baptized in industrial sweat. 19th century Prussian labor laws mandated numbered copper tags for workers. Yet here lies private devotion. The figure's paint blistered off, uniform dissolved into a metallic tumor. You rub it. Your thumb prints fresh tarnish onto the corrosion, green as envy, deep as mine shafts. Anecdotes tell of fathers pressing toy soldiers into sons' palms before shifts, guardians against the kiln's appetite. This one's base bears scratch marks, J. Nowak, J. Nowotny, the rest eaten by oxidization. Historians still debate whether such tokens were lost or left deliberately to appease the clay dust demons. Its lead alloy explains the warping, cheap metallurgy failing under constant heat. Yet the face retains something human: pressed cheeks, button nose, an echo of the hands that once wound it up to march. You imagine it parading across a tenement windowsill, saluting smokestacks instead of toy cannons. The mill's grindstone lies nearby, scarred from polishing not grain, but workers' tokens into anonymity. Local legends claim night, foremen melted stolen trinkets into rivets, plugging kiln cracks with stolen luck. Your soldier's legs bend at impossible angles, as if it collapsed mid-sprint from an artillery blast. Only it could see. Workers' petitions from 1893 beg management to stop docking pay for lost frivolities, proof of trinkets sacrificed to machinery. Black market tinkerers peddled tin figures as makeshift valve seals, their pliable metal cheaper than factory parts. This one's back bears tool marks. Someone tried prying it loose before surrendering to the earth's grip. Dawn filters through the mill's ribs. Your shadow stretches the soldier into a giant on the pit wall. 9 crows roost above one for each decade since this token last saw daylight. You pocket it, feel its weight, contradict its fragility, then reconsider. Kiln folklore warns against stealing the dead's votives. Penny whistles, unearthed in '58, sparked a 3-week furnace malfunction. The foreman's pocket watch from last night whispers in your memory, its frozen hands accusing. You kneel, scrape a new hole beside a gnarled oak root, press the soldier into darkness feet first. Rain begins, droplets sizzling on nearby kiln stones. Mud oozes over your makeshift burial, a ritual observed by no one but the crows. Somewhere beneath Berlin, archivists preserve Union ledgers detailing 16 Johanns who vanished from payrolls, none matching your melted guardian. The tree root curls around the fresh-turned earth, embracing or imprisoning. You decline to guess. Shift whistles echo from modern factories. Half a mile east, their workers armed with fiberglass shovels and digital timers. Your palms sting with the ghost of J. Noak/Nowotny's last grasp, acidic tang of guilt and curiosity, unsated, walking away. You swear the soil mutters, in lead-heavy German, a lullaby for the unclaimed. Tomorrow's archaeologists will debate your footprint's significance, never imagining the pragmatism of a pilgrim refusing curses. Let the kiln gods keep their soldier. You've enough ghosts already clanking in your pockets. The first shovel bites, concrete hard earth inches from your ear, its iron clang jolting you into a pantomime of sleep. Dawn bleeds across the yard, frost etching each brick, stack with temporary lace. But the workers see only the clock. Their boots crunch yesterday's cinders, leather soles worn thin by the 97 steps between coal pile and kiln mouth. One man hawks a loogie onto your dormant campfire. It sizzles halfway between phlegm and philosophy. Carl's mule could piss hotter. He grumbles, beginning the daily critique of the night kiln tender's work. You recognize the cadence, Prussian work songs, adapted from drinking chants. Each insult a brick laid in the foundation of camaraderie. A thermos clinks, its owner pouring chicory coffee, blacker than the soot-stained Virgin Mary statue in the tool shed. 19th century Silesian brickmakers legally had to provide vinegar-soaked sponges for lime burns. But caffeine came from their own pfennigs. The drinker's breath will smell of burnt honeycomb for hours, a scent you'll later mistake for nostalgia at a Berlin street fair. 2 apprentices wrestle a sagging wheelbarrow, the left wheel squealing like a tortured hinge. Replace the axle, hands. Snaps a foreman, his voice adenoidal. Or I'll shove that barrow where your mother hides her marzipan. Laughter ripples, scripted yet sincere, as the crew peels off layers. Under their coats, flannel shirts mendied with wire twists, tattoos blurred by brick dust. You catch a faded USS Iowa anchor on a laborer's forearm, a Cold War souvenir from when GIs traded jeans for grenadine bricks. Local legend claims an East German bricklayer smuggled microfilm in hollow blocks, his Morse code kiln temperatures relaying NATO secrets. The real story: dude just loved Levi's. Someone kicks your boot noticing, but not acknowledging your presence. Gnarled hands adjust a sweat-stained cap, its brim curled into a permanent shrug. Historians still argue whether the Silesian Brickmakers Guild deliberately exaggerated regional accents to confuse factory inspectors. Judging by the foreman's grunt, they're still committed to the bit. A transistor radio crackles polka music, its batteries taped together with chapel candle wax. Workers mouth lyrics about broken hearts and schnitzel, their shovels keeping time. You note 3 men avoiding rhythm, superstitious types who believe synchronized digging invites kiln explosions. Their steps form a stumbling counterpoint, the jazz of safety protocols. A teenage hire drops his glove, You watch him consider abandoning it to the mud. His supervisor barks, "Lose another pair, and you'll shovel with your teeth." 1896 records show a brickworks in Opel docking wages for lost mittens at twice the item's cost, the original sin of corporate merch upcharging. The crew fans out their blades, scratching the overnight crust. Each dig unearths a fossil record cigarette butts from the Brezhnev era, a hairpin clasp still clutching a single auburn strand, a Nokia ringtone embedded in strata where the clay pit swallowed a forklift hole. Your spine screams from the cot's plywood. Yet you linger, a tourist, at your own autopsy. The thermos Guy pees against the east kiln, his arc steady despite the cold. Steam rises, a transient obelisk, as he carves his initials into the brick's soft underbellies. Union rules for bad, defacing product. But morning supervisors looked the other way, the Yahweh of shift change. Dust motes swarm where sunbeams slice through eaves, each particle a retired kiln demon seeking new nostrils. You fake a snore, inviting belief in your ignorance of their world. The men need this, the theater of dominion over the night dweller, the validation that dawn resets all hierarchies. A whistle blows your cue to rise. Stretch theatrically. Let them witness the amateur stiffness. The foreman watches you pack, face unreadable beneath eyebrows frosted with ash. You've seen that look before on Bavarian bouncers, deciding whether to eject a drunken poet. Somewhere beyond the gate, a street sweeper's broom scrapes the modern asphalt. Its rhythm syncs with the shovels, industrial age waltzing with post-industrial decay. You brush dirt from your sleeve. Half the yard's dust comes with settling into your cuffs. As you pass the east kiln, the urinator nods, secret handshake of those who have shared dawn's brittle truce. You wonder what he etched this time, a lover's initial. A crude doodle, the kiln will bake it into obscurity, glazing his rebellion into something saleable. The gate creaks shut behind you, its whine echoing the shovel blade's song. Your shadow walks ahead, already homeward, while your heels cling to red mud. Tradition says departing guests should never look back, lest they see their own face in the kiln's flame. You look back. Dawn's early blush sears the horizon, molten gold bleeding into chimney smoke. You walk backward down the gravel path, relic dust pooling in your boot treads, the yard shrinking with each step. Behind you, the main kiln exhales one final plume, gray phantoms twisting into rose-tinged nothingness. It's 6:23 a.m., and the factory whistle screams across Silesia, a sound unchanged since Bismarck's brick-hungry industrial boom reshaped the region. Brittle frost crunches underfoot, each icy shard a miniature replica of the Romanov factories that once swallowed 2,000 bricks per hour. Your breath hangs suspended, a dozen ghostly bricks midair. Historians still argue whether the zigzag patterns on 19th century Silesian bricks encoded Masons' protest songs, or just imitated fashionable Bavarian wallpaper. A worker's bicycle rattles past, its basket stacked with sack lunches wrapped in News Deutschland newspapers. The rider doesn't glance your way, already mentally kneading his 8-hour clay quota. You pass a crumbling shed wall papered with century-old flyers, advertisements for bricklayers' liniment, and a lost schnauzer named Siegel. Your left heel grinds something into the mud. A ceramic fragment glazed the exact pink of the fading smoke. Workers here whisper that pre-dawn chimney vapors carry unborn brick souls, tiny fired spirits seeking rooftops to haunt. You pocket the shard, votive offering or future regret, as a magpie regards you from a telephone pole. The road ahead gleams with recent asphalt, black mirror to the sky's pyre. Halfway home, if you can call it that, you scrape your soles on a curb. Scarlet dust snows onto the pavement, each particle still vibrating with last night's furnace roar. A passing BMW's tires atomize your journey further, spreading the yard's essence across 6 zip codes. At the tram stop, an old woman eyes your grimy cuffs. Kiln patrol, she asks, recognizing the patina. Her grandfather fired bricks for the Waldenburg railway tunnels, each curve calculated using a stolen French trigonometry text. You nod, and she smiles, revealing a molar capped with 1950s dental porcelain. Best sleep of your life, she lies. The tram arrives, its seats pockmarked by phantom clay thumbs. You collapse opposite a student sketching blueprints, their margins crowded with doodled gargoyles. 3 stops later, they exit, leaving behind a charcoal smudge shaped like the kiln's mouth. Outside, shopkeepers roll up awnings, unaware their bricks harbor Lenin's fingerprint from a 1912 visit. Your pocket warms, the ceramic shard conducting yesterday's heat. By noon, it'll cool into just another rock, anonymous as the nameless masons who stacked these streets. But for now, pressed against your thigh, it thrums, keeping time with the retreating fire's echo. The city swallows you whole, its asphalt and concrete disguising the truth. Every bank, every bakery, every parking garage, all cousins of that brick-stacked yard. Even the cathedral ahead, its spire-piercing low clouds, rests on a million Silesian throats. You inhale diesel fumes and pretend not to taste the underlying terracotta. Your key sticks in the apartment's Soviet-era lock, its tumblers gritty with half a continent's sediment. Inside, you kick off boots, watch crimson powder settle into floor cracks. Tomorrow's problem. Through smog-streaked windows, distant factories, PUFF Chinese letter approval. You rinse your face. The sink runs pink briefly, history spiraling down drains. Bed sags, its springs groaning like overburdened kiln shelves. Sleep comes fast, a blackened tunnel. No bricks here, only the weight of your own clay-heavy limbs. Somewhere, a nightshift worker stokes flames, feeding the hunger that built empires. You dream of chimneys breathing in reverse. The chimneys dissolve, softened to shadows that sway like burnt paper. Your breath slows, sinking with the distant hiss of cooling bricks. Somewhere beyond sleep, a sparrow lands on the kiln's lip, its tiny claws scattering ash, made weightless by dawn. You float, unmoored from the gravel's bite, from the shard's fading warmth. The city's hum settles into your bones, a distant furnace purring through layers of time. Even Lenin's fingerprints blur here, their revolutionary edges worn smooth as river stones. Dust becomes mere dust again, no longer ancestors or unanswered questions. Your mattress cradles every hollow, each springs creak a lullaby older than railways, that molar capped with 1950s porcelain. It's smiling somewhere, untroubled by tomorrow's excavations. Dawn's gold fades to eggshell, the horizon stretching like fresh clay on a wheel. There's no need to count zip codes or ghosts per cubic meter of smoke. Your pocket sits empty, yet somehow fuller, as Nightshift flames dwindle to ember-fed yawns. The apartment's lock sighs shut, its tired mechanics caked with the dust of 100 journeys. Crimson powder lingers in floorboard cracks, guardians of secrets too small for history books. Through streaked glass, factory stacks nod, their approval etched in fading smoke signals. Hush now. Let diesel fumes become incense. Let the BMW's growl morph into a caretaker's shushing. Those phantom thumbs pressing into tram seats, just skilled hands, kneading rest into the world's stubborn edges. Sheets cool against skin, a balm for the kiln's phantom heat. Somewhere beneath the neighborhood, clay still whispers, but the words are slurred, sleepy. That student's charcoal smudge, its dissolving now gargoyles softening into cloud shapes even children could love. Your last conscious thought, a magpie's wing catching light, not a shard anymore, not a relic, just a black and white breath held. Then released, the kilns keep burning. You don't. Sleep, rough as brick dust, smooth as glaze, claims you whole.